199,993 chargers to install across America to meet their goals. 7 so far. Blame it on the states. We'll open the lines to ask you about the state of EVs. Are they a political choice like everything else in America? And what's holding you back from going electric? You can call or text.
And I'm Sue O'Connell, in for Andrea Carbal, who is going to be in for Margery Egan. Look, we've got some great live music on a Tuesday. It's courtesy of the American Spiritual Ensemble. They're carrying on the legacy of Negro spirituals, what the group's founder, Dr. Everett McCorvey, calls America's mother's music. Okay, all that ahead and more on Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH, live from the BPL.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Corby Kummer. Israel has admitted its forces killed 7 charity workers yesterday in Gaza. They were with World Central Kitchen, the food relief organization founded by celebrity chef Jose Andres. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu spoke publicly today. He's heard here through a BBC interpreter.
Unfortunately, a tragic incident occurred in the past 24 hours involving unintentional harm inflicted by our forces on innocent people in the Gaza Strip. This happens in war. We are fully looking into it, contacting governments, and we will do everything so this incident won't happen again.
World Central Kitchen has suspended its work in Gaza. Secretary of State Antony Blinken, speaking in Paris, says aid workers have to be protected. He also says there have been a record number of humanitarian workers killed in the Gaza conflict. Israel is not commenting on a strike on an Iranian consulate building in Syria yesterday. Iran is blaming Israel for this and is vowing a response. Several people were killed in the strike, including 2 Iranian generals. The Florida Supreme Court has issued 2 opinions involving the issue of abortion. From member station WUSF in Tampa, Stephanie Colombini explains.
One of the court's rulings will allow Florida's new 6-week abortion ban, with some exceptions, to take effect in 30 days. The state's previous 15-week ban was less restrictive than bans in most other southern states. And McKenna Kelly with the Tampa Bay Abortion Fund says the ruling will block the group's efforts to help patients travel to Florida for care.
With the 6-week ban, effectively, abortion's going to be cut off for the entire Southeast.
And Kelly says that will further strain clinics in states where abortion is more widely accessible. Florida voters will get a chance to weigh in on the issue in November. The court also ruled that a proposed constitutional amendment to protect abortion access can remain on the ballot. For NPR News, I'm Stephanie Colombini in Tampa.
The federal government is now offering financial help to small businesses affected by the bridge collapse in Baltimore. From member station WYPR, Wamboy Kamau has more.
Any small business impacted by the bridge collapse can apply for a disaster loan of up to $2 million. At one recovery center is Tasha Gresham James, the head of a local community development organization.
Here is a great one-stop shop for anyone who either, if you're seeing that you might, reduce loss of wages, or if you're a small business that just needs assistance with keeping your doors open, we're here for you.
As word gets out, Gresham James expects the coming weeks to be busier. The disaster declaration covers small business owners across all of Maryland and some counties in surrounding states. For NPR News, I'm Wamboy Kamau in Baltimore.
You're listening to NPR News.
Good morning. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. We begin with sad news from Red Sox Nation. Larry Lucchino, whose tenure as Red Sox president included 3 World Series championships, with the first one ending an 86-year drought, died this morning. During his 14 years in Boston, beginning in 2002, the Red Sox reached the playoffs 7 times. They won the World Series in 2004, 2007, and 2013. Larry Lucchino was a Pittsburgh native. He was responsible for bringing general manager Theo Epstein to the Red Sox from the San Diego Padres, where the two had worked together. They helped the team break the curse of the Bambino. Lucchino left the Red Sox to become chairman of the Worcester Red Sox, who play their first home game of the season later today. Franchise owner John Henry calls Larry Lucchino one of the most important executives in baseball history. Larry Lucchino, dead at 78. If you'd like to be one of the lucky 150 people to be aboard the USS Constitution for the Boston's annual 4th of July celebration, you can enter the ship's free lottery that opens today. Commander Billy Farrell is the 77th commanding officer of the USS Constitution. She says it's an impressive and long-standing tradition that includes the turnaround in Boston Harbor and the ship's 21-gun salute.
I just encourage people to enter the lottery. I know I've talked to several guests on board that say they've entered every year for the past 20 or 30 years. And so it's always great. I know last year we had people come from as far away as Alaska that won the lottery to join us for the day.
You can enter the lottery through any of the warship's social media channels until May 2nd. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from Dignity Memorial, helping families protect their loved ones and gain peace of mind by planning cremations and funerals in advance, dedicated to professionalism and compassion in every detail. More at dignitymemorial.com.
Welcome to Boston Public Radio. We're live from the Boston Public Library, streaming online at youtube.com/GBH News. I am Jim Browdy. Sue O'Connell is in today, and I'm not quite sure who she's sitting in for. I think she's sitting in for Andrea Carbal, who is supposed to be sitting in for Margery Egan. Regardless, it's nice to see you.
I'm happy to be in for anyone.
Do you have any idea who you are sitting in for?
I don't. I'm just going to come in and stand next to you and look at you and nod.
You know, by the way, I am in my usual bad mood.
Yes.
I know, which is almost redundant. Let me say, we heard about 30 minutes ago the rehearsal of the American Spiritual Ensemble.
Amazing.
They're going to talk to us and perform at 11:30. If you need a lift like I do, there is no greater lift than listening to these amazing, amazing performers. That's at 11:30. And if you're close to the library, I would suggest that you hightail it over here and come on by. But first, the Biden administration invested $7 billion in electric vehicle charging infrastructure, vowing to build 500,000 charging stations by 2030. Well, here's the good news. They only have 499,993 to go. That is right. According to the Washington Post, just 7 chargers of that 500,000 are operational so far. Apparently, by the way, it's not the Biden administration's fault. It's the states who are the laggards, but regardless, lagging they do. We're going to open the lines this morning to ask you about the state of EVs in America. Not only is the infrastructure rollout been slower than people had hoped, it's also an increased politicization of ditching combustible engines. Here's the deal. We all recall when Prius owners were stereotyped as NPR listening, dyed-in-the-wool liberals. Now they're gas-guzzling hybrids. Don't even get me started on the Tesla Elon Musk the anger he rightfully generates with his hateful antics. But we want to hear from you. It's our quarterly EV check-in. The number to text or call is 877-301-8970. What's holding you back from going electric, if you are held back? Prices have come down, but the chargers just aren't there yet. Is it range anxiety, or is it the politics of it all? Sue just bought a car. We'll find out if it's an EV in a minute. Again, it's 877-301-8970. I did some maths, by the way, and I don't want to start with bad news. It is true that they budgeted for 500,000 chargers.
Yes.
And they have only done 7 so far.
Yes.
So I did quick math this morning because I want to try to be a little more positive. In 17,000 years, all of the chargers will be up and running. So, Sue O'Connell, you just bought a car.
I did.
I was alerted to that by one of our coworkers. Did you, who is a fairly progressive, environmentally concerned kind of person, I assume you bought an EV?
No.
Why would that be?
So I did buy one of those self-charging cars, which when you're driving without your foot on the brake under, I think, 30 miles an hour, it will charge the battery. And the bad news about that is you're using fuel to charge your battery, but it does cut down on your fuel consumption. So that's what we bought. My daughter Ruby is an amazing shopper. She's been picking out our family cars since she was 12. We test drove, I think, 6 or 7 cars. We started with fully electric, then we moved to the hybrid, and then I realized that as a person who rents, who lives in the city, who has no access to a regular charging station, who only drives a total of maybe tops 10 miles round trip a day. I had a lease for 3 years and only went 20,000 miles an hour. Even with the deduction for the purchase, the pain and agony of having to charge it, it didn't work out for us.
So it is that was a rather defensive explanation.
Yeah,
of why you didn't buy an EV.
There you go.
So is it the charger issue?
Yeah, I mean, it's like if I have to go searching and I talk to people who live in our neighborhood, I know Boston City Council's made it, they're going to launch some chargers if they're going in the same way the states have. It will take a while. Yeah, it's too much effort to try and charge it, and I don't have any easy places to go. I do at work, but like we have 300 employees at work, so people are always charging at work.
You know, the other thing that I think is a problem, and we're curious to know if you're not EV, but you're supportive of EVs and are concerned about the fact that cars and transportation are the largest source of carbon emissions in the country while you're not doing an EV. The hatred for the odious Elon Musk is so intense. I have to say, I think people know I bought a Tesla, a couple of this little bitty one that I fit into, I think a year ago, December. I'm not sure right now I would have bought one, even though I love the car, because he is such a reprehensible character. And apparently, and you don't know how much this is true and how much is rhetoric, apparently a lot of people who would otherwise buy Teslas are not buying them because they don't want to give Musk a penny. And I do feel some sort of pain that I am helping finance his pathetic behavior. No, I'm serious.
Yeah,
his
no, I get it. But
behavior.
there's always a reason to hate someone in corporate America. You know, I mean, we could look at all the lists.
So you have to walk, is that your point?
Well, I drove a Volkswagen for years, even though Volkswagen, you know, skirted the emissions issues in Europe.
Oh, they
and there were
phonied
issues.
it up.
Yeah,
right,
and I still bought another Volkswagen. So I think at some point, you're always giving into something. But, you know, the Elon Musk, you do now have more choices. I mean, if I were able to actually buy a fully electric vehicle, I had a number of choices that the prices were all comparable. So there are a lot of good points out there. But if you're in the city and you're renting and you can't just build yourself a charger like some of my friends have, you can't do it.
Now, one of the beauties, before we take to your calls and texts, is I got a text last night from Tesla. Now, I don't think it was from Elon Musk personally, but it was from Tesla saying that I had a free month of full service automatic drive. And I looked it up. It's not quite like it drives itself like those trucks are about to do. It sort of drives itself as long as your hand's on the steering wheel. And you know, I was too scared to turn it on this morning. They tell you what to hit on the screen, and I was too nervous to actually turn the damn thing on.
Well, we could take you to a parking lot. We can go to South Bay afterwards and let you drive around. That might be a nice social media post.
Well, let's get through the show first. 877-301-8970. About 4 times a year, we do a check-in with our listeners about where they are on the EV thing. By the way, I should have mentioned that in addition to this slow rollout, which again appears not to be the Biden administration's fault, but the fact that the states that are receiving that $7 billion are slow off the mark, he's put out new emission rules, correct me if I'm wrong, that require that by 2032, which is not that far away, a majority of cars be electric vehicles or hybrids. That's only 8 years. So they got to really get with the program pretty rapidly. 877-301-8970. Sue O'Connell sitting in for somebody. I am Jim Browdy. Andy in Fairhaven, you're next, or first, I guess, on Boston Public Radio. Welcome. Andy, you called us. Okay, we'll put Andy on hold. Good start. 877-301-8970. Andy, if you wake up, we'll get back to you in a second. Megan in Somerville, welcome. Okay.
I hope might not be them. So let's
this
take a
is
look
a
at some
technological marvel we're having
as
here.
we're talking about the challenges of having an electric vehicle.
Exactly.
Alex and Palmer, the only reason I don't have an electric car is the price of electricity in Massachusetts. It's the highest in the country, and that means driving a car that gets 43 miles per gallon is cheaper to drive than even the most efficient EV.
That is totally untrue.
I was going to say,
I do the math almost every single week. I don't know how high electricity prices are right now. Whatever they are, I do the comparison. It's a hell of a lot cheaper than driving a gas-powered vehicle.
Yeah. Okay. Do you want to try Barbara?
Sure. We won't talk to her either.
We'll see if Barbara. Okay, we can't hear. Okay, so I'll read you some more lovely texts here from Amy in Scituate. I'm no expert, I think she says, but I feel like no one talks about the energy we use to charge is not often from green sources. The lithium mining and recycling are awful and have a big footprint, and EVs are marketed to us as if driving is the main cause of climate change. Again, this is always in the mix.
Driving is one of the main causes of climate change.
And, you know, these are the problems that we have with all the energy, but I think given a choice, choosing electric is a cleaner way to drive.
Yeah. By the way, our number is 877-301-8970. If you call us, we won't be able to hear you, so that'll work out pretty well. They're fixing, allegedly, what did they say, 2 to 3 minutes. Are we going to have to dump all these people? Is that what we're doing? We don't. Stay where you are. If you're online, stay where you are. and we'll get to you forthwith. Or, by the way, even if it turns out you read 2 criticisms so far, even if it turns out that there is some truth to what the first 2 texters had to say, do they deny that having an EV is better for the climate than having a combustion engine? You can't deny that.
No, you can't deny.
So even if there are downsides, the downsides are outweighed by the upsides.
And the inability to completely change human behavior, like I had someone say to me, well, why, if you're getting a bigger car, even if it's electric, you're still not helping. And I'm like, well, if you're going to buy a bigger car anyway and you haven't changed your mind, we're better off with a bigger car that's an electric or a hybrid than electric that's driving on fuel. So
and you're an expert. You would know since you just bought a gas-powered vehicle.
Yes,
That's
I did
right,
indeed.
exactly.
So, and I feel like my carbon footprint isn't that big.
Exactly.
So there
You're
you
not
go.
Al Gore anyway, if that's the case.
I'm not charging my 5 million square foot house. Okay, let's see who else we have. Electric vehicles do not have spare tires. That's not true either. Boy, this is like a fact-checking Rama here on the text.
What are they saying there? What are they
saying that they don't have spare tires in order to keep the weight of the car down. That's an issue for me, as I seem very skilled at finding nails in the road. That's Ruth in Rhode Island. They often
do have a
They
spare
also
tire.
have some of the more luxury cars have the self. Fixing tire. So
They
if
do?
it gets a hole, it fixes itself for 50 miles.
Elon Musk comes out and fixes the damn tire.
He does
is
after he drives it for
unbelievable,
you.
By the way, the next text says, I haven't bought an EV because most of them only have one wheel and no engine. I mean, this is all BS.
It's BS. My favorite thing about me not buying an EV.
Yeah, this is the defense of Sue O'Connell.
No. This is, I often get accused of pretending, this moral pretending, taking the high ground, virtual signaling. And I could have done that and bought an electric car and then pretended I was better than everyone, but I didn't because I'm
That's what
not.
I did.
Yeah, I know you did.
By the way, the first time ever, it's so funny you say the word virtue signaling. I'd never heard the word until, you know who used it on our show?
Who?
Charlie Baker, former governor of Massachusetts. You may know he's head of the NCAA. By the way, did you watch the game last night with Iowa
I
and
was at Olivia
LSU?
Rodrigo last
Oh, you
night.
were. Let me tell you something. This Caitlin Clark is one of the greatest
Amazing.
athletes who has ever lived. Having said that, you know why Governor Baker did the virtue signaling? It was in response to a question from Margery as to why he was not riding the T more. If the T was a problem, why would he not ride it and find out firsthand? And he essentially said he was not into virtue signaling. First time I'd ever heard the term, and now I use it as often as possible.
Yep.
By the way, we are researching the issue of whether or not we are legally entitled to call ourselves a call-in show when we can't take any calls. But our lawyers are looking into that, and we'll get to that in a minute. Should we take a break? Do we have a little guidance here?
Yeah, we'll take a break.
Why don't we take a short break, by which time the phones will probably not be fixed, but maybe they will be. Who are we again? You're supposed to say something.
Yes, I was going to say stick around and find out what happens, because it's very exciting. He's Jim Browdy. I'm Sue O'Connell.
This is pathetic.
It's Boston
We are
Public Radio,
pathetic.
89.7
Thank you.
GBH. Stay with us.
Thank you
Who
very
knows
much.
what's going to happen?
I'm Jared Bowen. Coming up on The Culture Show, Chris Fleming. His comedy is off the wall. It's absurd, and for a long time it's been niche. But now he has a comedy special streaming on Peacock, and he's selling out shows, but that doesn't mean he's selling out. From there, it's the president of Colby College on how they leaned hard on the arts to revitalize Waterville, Maine. That's on The Culture Show today at 2 on 89.7 GBH.
Support for our programs comes from you. And The Lyric Stage, presenting The Drowsy Chaperone. This bubbly love letter to musical theater includes mix-ups, mayhem, and a wedding or two. April 5th through May 12th at Lyric Stage Boston. Tickets at lyricstage.com. And Tanglewood, the summer home of the Boston Symphony Orchestra, bringing Beethoven, Broadway, and more to the Berkshires. You can plan your summer at tanglewood.org.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. I'm Jim Browdy. Sue O'Connell sitting in for Margery. Thank you all very much for being kind to us in our time of trouble.
Our time of need.
We're live at the Boston. We're always our time of need. We're live from the Boston Public Library, streaming online at youtube.com/GBH News. The bad news is the phones aren't working. They will be in a minute, theoretically. We'll let you know. The good news is we're about 14 minutes away from as exciting a performance as you could possibly have. In fact, 2 of them. If you're just tuning in, we're talking about the state of electric vehicles in America. Some of us aren't ready to give up our standard transmission cars like Sue O'Connell because they, quote, drive better or something. That's according to the BPR producer who left her Mini Cooper in neutral and gave a dozen people outside the Lenox this morning a nice little fright when it rolled backwards into Exeter Street and almost ran over a woman with a little baby. A big thank you to the valet staff at the Lenox for maintaining order around the chaos that is, I don't want to say who it was, Zoe Matthews. So the lines are open. Have you made the EV switch? And how difficult has it been really to shift your lifestyle from gas stations to overnight charging down the street if the chargers even work? This is from somebody whose phones don't even work. The text line, which is the same as the phone line, and Sue will read them, is 877-301-8970. By the way, do we at least agree that there are EVs that are really high quality that are comparably priced?
Yes.
To the price, even the Tesla price is coming down dramatically.
Yes, the prices are comparable, and you can also get very affordable EVs, especially in the Chevy world, the Toyota world. It doesn't have to be, a big SUV. So, I'm looking at a lot of these texts, which are just enraging me, so I'm not sure I can read them.
Let's do it so we can
Well, it's just, it's as if the idea is that we're just going to keep driving gas because the electric is fueled by gas and it costs a lot, so let's just drive until the planet ends. That's just my view. Of course, I just bought a fuel. Let's see. The maintenance cost, Colin from Cranston, Rhode Island. As a student, I'd love to swap to an EV, but the increased cost to purchase and increased maintenance cost really prohibits me from getting one.
Wait.
Also not
Maintenance
true.
costs are lower in EVs because there are fewer movable parts. I mean, by the way, this is, rather than blaming listeners, which you're not supposed to do in this business. No, it's okay. We've done it already. It's too late. The marketing thing is an unmitigated
Well, that's what
disaster.
I was just going to say, that the problem here.
They just don't know. They don't know about costs. They don't. I mean, the only legitimate criticism that I've heard so far is like you said, the accessibility of chargers is a real problem kind of thing. So what we're doing, by the way, because we're really fast on our feet, the calls are coming in, but we can't hear them. Now, I would say if they're coming in and you can't hear them, they're not that valuable. Would you agree? Okay, we're in the same place. But what we are doing brilliantly is, are you going to speak to this? We are setting up the homing mic, the mic in the studio, because we are really desperate. And we are so desperate that a guy who's even connected to the show, which is totally unprofessional, is going to be our first person at the mic. Can you turn on the mic? David, how are you? Wait, I'm not supposed to know who you are.
Oh, yeah. So
what's your
are
name,
you?
Sir? Wait, we can't hear you
him
either. This is perfect. Okay, and by the way, you won't be able to hear the American Spiritual Ensemble or anybody. Yes, you will. That was a joke.
We're just kidding. We're
David,
kidding.
say hello. Okay,
still.
thank you very much for coming.
All right, let's hear some more people who are complaining about EVs.
David, don't go away. It's going to work any minute. It's working
David.
now. David, say something.
1, 2,
Yay.
Oh, my God. Let's hear it for David at the mic. Okay, do me a favor. Speak really long and slow. Can you do that? Fill as much time as you possibly can.
Go ahead, David.
Go. What are you here to say, David?
I own, lease.
Slower.
I lease 2
Kill as much time as you
full
can.
EVs.
You do not.
Yeah.
We do.
You should explain what business you're in, since you're kind of...
So I'm a publicist, an arts publicist.
Yeah.
I'm here a lot.
A lot of our
and I'm
organizations
happy to
who
serve.
perform are actually through you and your colleagues.
Yes.
Go ahead.
And
okay.
it is my honor to assist the crew here today.
Okay, that's a little overboard.
Let's
Go
not get
ahead.
carried away.
So you lease 2 EVs. What are they? What are they?
One is a Kia Niro. The other is a Hyundai Ioniq.
And are you having any trouble finding chargers?
We live in a condominium complex.
In the
we
city
don't
or in
have
a suburb?
In Concord.
Okay.
We live in a complex with about 240 units, about 10 to 15 EVs on the property. There is a dedicated 2-headed level 2 charger.
That's the 20-mile-an-hour type kind of thing, as opposed to the superchargers.
Right. And quite honestly, unless you've got a Tesla, you probably shouldn't be using a level 3 charger anyway.
By the way, the phones are working. You can speed it up now. Okay, what's your point there, David?
So it only works if you have access to regular charging.
Yeah.
But once you do, that's fine. I had range anxiety early on because I was doing a lot of driving.
Yeah.
You got to think every night if you can't plug it in the garage.
Do you have a point what's your basic point? What is your basic point?
Number one, you're right to be ashamed of owning a Tesla.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you.
And, you know, and there are affordable, Sue is quite correct. There are affordable, very good cars. They're not those Mustang things that some people have.
By the way, I almost bought Jamie's
Mustang.
Mustang. You know why I didn't buy the Mustang? Because I didn't fit in it.
Oh,
That's
Mustang's
a real
great
problem
car,
when
though.
you're 6'5", my friend.
I will say that we may end up having to get a second car. My second car will be all electric.
Oh, please.
And it will be one of the small
David,
ones.
we've pretty much had enough of you. Do you
David,
have anything
thanks for
final
calling.
to say
All right,
or not?
I got 20 minutes more.
No, it's okay. Let's hear it for David. He really
David,
bailed us
good
out.
job.
That was excellent. Okay,
We know
the
David a
phones
long
are
time.
allegedly working. What would you bet on them actually working? By the way, we have fabulous tech people.
Yeah.
So it's not them. It's like
just
the
happens.
something, the grid. Can I blame it? What is the grid anyway?
The grid.
The grid. It's a Mercury retrograde
Sure.
is the
Saturn
problem. It's not their
cycle.
fault.
It's the eclipse.
Cross your fingers. We're going to try to go to Mitch. We don't know where he's from, but he is Mitch. Hello, Mitch.
Hi,
Oh,
Yay,
my God.
Mitch. Good job, Mitch.
Sorry, Mitch. We're very
you win
excited
already.
to have you. What are you saying here?
I'm calling from my Tesla Model 3, which I've owned since 2018.
That's what I have, Model 3. Go ahead.
Absolutely the best car I've ever owned.
Me too.
Without question.
Me too.
Maintenance over 6 years has been zero until just recently when I had an $800 repair. I have saved, I'm guessing, about $10,000 or so on gas compared to, on electricity compared to gas with my former car. I've got almost 100,000 miles on it. It drives like a dream. I charge in my garage every night. If I had to rely only on the superchargers, then that would be obviously much less convenient. But I've taken it on long road trips with zero range anxiety. I just do what the car tells me to do.
It does tell you. Tells you where to go. It tells you if you don't go to the charger in X number of miles, you're going to be in trouble. Mitch, before you go, have you taken any crap like I have for giving money to Elon Musk?
I have a bumper sticker on my car that says we bought it before we knew what a jackass he was.
That's not true. Is that really true?
I like it.
It really is true. I'll text you a picture of it.
We'd love to see that. Mitch, thank you. We really appreciate your call, and thanks for sticking with it because we know we had some problems. Mitch, thank you very much for the
Another
call.
texter, I've owned a Bolt. That was, I don't think they're making those anymore.
Is that a
the Chevy
Chevy?
Bolt, but
Yeah.
I was looking at that as well for the second car if we get it. No problem until I wanted to travel to Maryland. Hotels didn't have very many destination chargers for travelers, so you're pretty limited along Route 95. I've heard from a couple of people in our research at cars, like folks who have family living in upstate New York who wanted to drive down in their fully electric vehicle, which was older, and as we know, batteries don't hold as much charge as they get older and everything, and that was a challenge. So the problem, I think, is not the cars, it's not the maintenance, it's not the cost, it's that we haven't got the infrastructure for charging.
Well, let me speak to that for a second. I've driven to Montreal the 2 Christmases that we've had the EV, and it took about 3 minutes of planning, plus looking at the Tesla screen. And because the superchargers are really fast, you stop once, you get a cup of coffee or lunch, and while you're doing that, your car is fully charged. That's one. What was my second point? Oh, and the other point is the average person who is worried about, oh my God, when I drive to Montreal or Ohio, most people don't drive to Montreal or Ohio that frequently. Yeah. They do what you do and I do. I live 10 minutes from work and 10 minutes home. What do you say? You drive 10 miles a day. Most of us drive limited numbers of miles where charging is not an issue. There's just this fear thing in their head. Jim, you're in New Hampshire. You're next on Boston Public Radio. We're talking about the state of the EV movement on whatever date this is, April 2nd. Hi.
Hey, how are you, Jim?
Hi. Good.
Good. Okay, so I'm calling as well from my Model 3.
Oh.
Bought it in 2017, my Tesla Model 3.
Yeah.
I love it. Best car I've ever had. I'll never go back to a combustible engine ever. Even considering how repugnant Elon Musk is. It is what it is.
Yeah, that's sort of how I feel, but go ahead.
What I've noticed is the only people that don't like electric cars, there's a failure of an electric car, my phone blows up with text from everybody I know letting me know this. And, but they don't drive the car, so.
I'm with you. That's a wonderful analysis, Jim. Thanks for the call. Scotty from Boston texts and says, I love my electric vehicle. It's called the Orange Line. The only difference is my Tesla doesn't break down. Your electric vehicle does break down.
Yes.
By the way, Philip Ang, who's head of the T,
He'll be here.
is courageously coming back yet again on April 12th. Is that at the library or is that at the library? Phil Ang will be kind enough to join us at the library. You want to take a call there, Sue?
Yeah, let's take a call. We're going to go to John in Westford. John, welcome to Boston Public Radio. Thanks for sticking with us.
Hey, John.
I read somewhere that an EV, the carbon footprint in manufacturing for the lithium and everything is so high that it takes about 7 years of driving to offset that of a conventional combustion engine.
Yeah.
And after about 100,000 miles, that's when you start to need a new battery. And then that kind of just continues it.
Where'd you read that in the Onion? Where'd you read that? I mean, by the way, John, with all due respect, why do you think Bill McKibben, I would argue the most important American environmentalist in American history, joins us once a month. Do you think Bill McKibben would be preaching EVs to us and our listeners and to America and to the world if he thought that the facts, quote, facts that you're presenting were legit?
Oh, I don't know.
Well, I do know.
I have a question.
Sure.
And this is sincere. Why is everybody hating on Elon? I'm serious.
Because he's a racist dog. That's why.
Anti-Semite.
Yeah, I mean, he's a nauseating character who never misses an opportunity to provide a platform for racism, anti-Semitism, misogyny. He's really a hateful character who happens to make pretty good cars and spaceships.
And actually maybe the one who comes up with the infrastructure for the charging stations at the same time. You know, the other part of that is this is also about changing human behavior. So we're not going to have the perfect electric vehicle right now, but we all have to keep taking steps to improve our behavior, to limit our carbon footprint.
By the way, the EPA, which I hope people consider to be relatively responsible, says that this is in response to John from Westford. The general estimate is about 30,000 miles is what it takes to recoup the carbon emissions used in building the car, give or take a couple of months. I'm too aggravated by this, and I really want to hear the music. Can we take a break?
Yeah, I think we can, because I'm aggravated too. So we're really people who tune in to hear us both aggravated.
You aggravated? Good. We're all aggravated. Thank you. Okay.
All right. Thanks, everyone who tried to call, did call, and texted us. Yeah. Listen, stay with us. It's going to get very joyful.
Next time on The World, making math fun. This high school math teacher in Bordeaux, France, has found a way. By rapping his way through algebra, geometry, and pre-calc. Rap-o-matics in the classroom, next time on The World.
This afternoon at 3, here on GBH News 89.7.
Support for GBH comes from you. And Trinity Rep, celebrating 60 years with August Wilson's Fences, a Pulitzer Prize-winning drama returning to Trinity Rep's stage now through April 28th. Tickets and more at trinityrep.com. And the Metro West Visitors Bureau. Starting April 1st, you can visit Hopkinton to join the 100 Starts celebration activities, led by the 26.2 Foundation and the Hopkinton Center for the Arts. Learn more at 26-2.org.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. I'm Jim Browdy. Sue O'Connell sitting in for Margery, who's going to be really unhappy she isn't here today. We're live from the library, streaming online at youtube.com/GBH News. I'm looking at our guests before I introduce them. Look at them, and I look like I spent the morning in a porta potty. In any case, it's time for a special Live Music Tuesday on BPR, courtesy of the American Spiritual Ensemble, and they are nothing short of spectacular. It's a globally renowned team of singers from every corner of the country, carrying a torch first lit by enslaved Americans who created what the group's founder, Dr. Everett McCorvey, calls this nation's mother music. And while they've been around for 3 decades, they're currently on their first ever tour of New England. They play a few shows this week at the Boston Conservatory, but this segment would not have been possible without the people over at the Great Music Worcester. They're hosting the ensemble at Curtis Performance Hall on Saturday, April 6th. For information, go to musicworcester.org or americanspiritualensemble.com. With us at the desk is the group's founder, Dr. Everett McCorvey. Also, Angela Brown, a decorated singer in her own right. She's been performing with the ensemble 25 years, made her debut with the Metropolitan Opera in the role of Aida in 2004, and she is unbelievable too. Everett, Angela, it's an honor to have you here. Thank you so much.
It's great to be here. Thank you.
It's really great to have you.
Doctor, talk to us about the mission of the ensemble. Like, what gets you up every morning and does all, just bringing this music that's just so amazing?
Thank you. Well, I grew up in Montgomery, Alabama during the Civil Rights Movement. And so my parents were involved with the Civil Rights Movement and knew Martin Luther King and Ralph Abernathy. And Martin Luther King loved spirituals. So as a child, I grew up listening to spirituals. And so when I became a professional singer and professional musician, I noticed that this music was not being performed as much. And I wanted to make sure that this music stayed alive because it was so important to our country's canon of music.
You talk to it as American, obviously American music,
yes.
mother music. You know,
Yes.
when I was in the 1960s in elementary school, we sang
Yes.
a lot of spirituals,
Yes.
and we were all white. I mean, it wasn't as if we were
It's
in a
okay.
great... Yeah, thank you very much. But it does seem that the canon of that has dropped away a bit.
Well, that's exactly right. And, you know, gospel music has become now so popular, and this is not gospel music. This is the mother music. I call it the mother music. It's the music that helped America find its voice. And no other country in the world can lay claim to American Negro spirituals. They were born right here in America.
Angela, you've performed with virtually everybody all over the world. Why such a commitment to the American Spiritual Ensemble? Why does it mean so much to you?
They're my family. I have cut my teeth on a lot of different genres of music, but it's nothing like being with Everett McCorvey and the family of the American Spiritual Ensemble to get together, because you don't do this to get rich. You do this to enrich your lives and your souls and to enrich the people that we go into the different communities to sing for. So
how does it enrich your soul?
It enriches my soul because I get to in-face with people, to look in their faces and see the joy that this music has brought to them. We have had the opportunity to sing a lot of places in the world, and going to sing spirituals, I mean, we're like rock stars, and I love it.
You know, Doctor, is there a correlation between the environment of, let's call it racial injustice, everybody's attacking DEI, affirmative action, all that stuff, and the importance of music like yours to your audiences?
Well, I will say something is even more important is the lack of history being taught. And so what happens is when history is not taught, we're doomed to repeat it. And that's what people are trying to do now. And so this music has a historical value because during slavery, it was the music that helped the people get across. And so I wanted to make sure that these stories of this music stayed alive. There are over 3,000 American Negro spirituals. And people still sing these as a way of comfort, as a way of getting through difficult times.
Angela, when you're singing around the world and singing this music to audiences from everywhere, from all different walks of life, all different types of culture, I hear from a lot of people, especially with American music, you know, from a certain time, that it connects with people in a way that they don't expect it to, that home is still home. Being away from home is still being away from home. looking to a greater good is still that. Do you see that when you say you see that look in their eyes? Is that the connection you're talking about?
I do. And, you know, I grew up in church. And I've had the opportunity to sing all these different genres of music, but I always go back to the heart, the source, the home of my upbringing. And even though spirituals aren't necessarily church music, the message that they have is universal. And it just feels like a warm hug from mama.
You know, speaking of a warm hug from mama, Everett, I don't go to church. I don't go to synagogue. I consider myself, I'm not proud, but it's true, I'm not very spiritual. I felt spiritual when I was listening to you all perform before. Yeah. What happens to people like me when they hear that music?
The music is universal, and the stories are universal. It came during a difficult time in our American history, but now these stories are universal. And these melodies touch people in ways that they can't even understand. It just envelops you. And then when you get voices like the singers of the American Spiritual Ensemble, it's a pleasure for me every time to get in front
Angela,
of
how many people are you singing with today?
Oh, Lord.
I counted them, 21.
Okay, thank you.
21 people are, I was afraid you would know the answer.
I don't know if I knew.
Okay.
And who are these people? I know you can't name them all, unfortunately.
No.
Where are they from? What's the connection?
All across the United States. And they're professional singers. Most of them are professional singers or students, opera singers. You name it, we have it here in the American Spiritual Ensemble.
New York, California, Maryland, New Jersey.
And teachers. We have lots of teachers here.
And where else? Florida. Yeah, and West Virginia.
Okay, so how do they rehearse?
Atlanta.
How do they rehearse?
They all come to New York. And so at the beginning of January, we bring everybody who's on tour to New York. And then we rehearse in New York. And then we go out for different legs of the tour.
Yeah.
We even have someone from Boston here. She's over there somewhere.
Where's that? Yeah. And by the way, you have the mayor, a former mayor of Lexington.
Of Lexington.
What is it? Why is she here?
Because she lives here now. She lives in Lexington, Massachusetts.
Is that true? Welcome, Mayor. It's a pleasure to have you.
Mayor of Lexington, Kentucky. Very popular mayor.
Why you been avoiding New England for all these years?
I don't know. Nobody's invited us.
We will after this week.
Yeah, we go where we're invited. Yeah, we'll go anywhere.
And we're very excited to be here.
Yes.
You know, I shouldn't give this away until people see it either on YouTube or here. When they were rehearsing, when you were rehearsing, I watched before, and this guy here, who's not one of your fellow singers, could you describe what he does while the performance is happening? I don't know if I could put it quite into words.
Well, first of all, he's a taskmaster. He's smiling. He's like, okay, on top of the pitch, sopranos, on top of the pitch. He's the conductor. He makes sure that we get where we need to go collectively and that we bring a sweet savor to the ears of everyone that's listening. So he is the man with the plan.
But plus he's a mover, too. He moves. And, you know, can you describe, before you tell us what the first song is going to be that you're performing, you did, at the beginning of your rehearsal, you did something with your players, I've never heard before.
Oh, wow.
What exactly, can you describe that a little bit?
Yeah, the music people will know, it's called lip trills. And so that's to get the breath moving, because singers are instrumentalists. They are also athletes. And so they have to get the breath and the body moving in the morning, especially for world-class voices like these. You have to get them going. It's like a Mercedes-Benz. You
have a world-class voice, too.
Well, thank you so much.
No, I know you, but is it hard for you not to be on the other side of this performance?
Well, I used to try to sing and conduct, and it just didn't work. Yeah, I just do one or the other. But I'm so happy to it makes me happy in my soul.
All right, so what are we going to listen to?
So the first piece is called Walk Together Children, Don't You Get Weary. And we have started every concert for 30 years with that song.
Why?
Because it was a statement by Martin Luther King during the Civil Rights Movement to engage people to keep marching. And he would say, walk together children, don't you get weary. There's a great camp meeting in the promised land.
Angela, you're going to join your colleagues.
Yes,
You want to put your headphones down softly? No, you're staying. Oh, you have to join them too. I forgot.
I have to.
Well, why don't you do that?
Okay.
Why don't you do that, and you're going to come back after this first
We'll come back and
performance.
talk.
We're going to let you know that they're on their first ever tour of New England. They're going to be playing a few shows this week at the Boston Conservatory, and then they will be out at the Curtis Performance Hall on Saturday, April 6th in Worcester, of course, and you can get information at musicworcester.org or americanspiritualensemble.com.
Dr. McCorvey, it's all yours. American Spiritual Ensemble. We'll tell you where you can see them the next few days, led by Dr. Everett McCorvey. And they were just doing Walk Together Children. They're returning, Angela and Everett are returning to the stage here to continue our conversation. And let me say the obvious, that was spectacular. I mean, just spectacular. Thanks for doing
thank
that
you.
for us.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
All before noon.
Good point. Can you talk to us about the different types of voices that we're hearing? You know, sometimes when you say this is a category of music, as Beyonce, of course, is teaching us, there are no genres of music or voices. But throughout this, do I hear opera? Do I hear traditional? What's the mix?
One of the things that was important to me as I heard music as a child, I heard the Tuskegee Institute University singers. Many groups came through Alabama in support of the civil rights movement. And so I heard a lot of these college choirs, and they had these rich, full voices. And so when I started the group, I wanted to have a group that had rich, full voices. And so the best place to find those sort of singers is in opera. And so my world is opera. And so I called all of my opera singer friends, and I said, let's make some beautiful music together.
But you don't just do opera, Angela. My understanding, there's Broadway music integrated into this too.
Oh, yes.
How does that fit into the construct of the whole performance by the American Spiritual Ensemble?
Well, with the American Spiritual Ensemble, you have everything from soup to nuts. I mean, these young people and seasoned professionals love all the genres of music, and we can. So why pigeonhole us into one thing as long as we are producing good, healthy sound?
But I'm assuming there's a connection too, is there not?
Well, if you think about it, when the spirituals began, this is when I talk about America finding their voice. Because before then, you had people of European descent who were coming here, British, Italian, and they brought their music. But this music was created here and born here. So from spirituals, jazz, blues, gospel, all of that grew. Popular music now uses what we call call and response, where somebody will start singing and the other people respond.
Well, that goes way back, does it not?
That goes to the spirituals. And so the spirituals have now affected all sorts of American music and American pop music. And so that's why we say that the spirituals are so important. And these singers, some sing on Broadway, they do all sorts of music.
Do you feel it? I mean, I watch you, as I say, you're wonderful to watch, as are your performers, but this enters your body.
Oh my goodness! It envelops your body all in a space like this, where it's a big open space, but yet the voices are so full that they just envelop your whole body.
Angela, I want to talk to both of you about. The bad news is that many of us have grown up not understanding that much of our, if not all of our American music, is Black American music. That the roots of country, obviously R&B, call and response in rock and roll. Rock and roll was a phrase. I mean, I could go on and on of almost every genre. Jazz, of course, goes without saying. The bad news is that many were unaware of that. The good news is, I think at least, there seems to be an awakening to this. I'll reference Beyonce again, pointing out that country music and banjos and all of that.
It's all music. That's exactly right. And so I think that that's really important, that we're now recognizing that this music is American music. It's what makes America unique.
Angela, you want to add something to that?
I agree with him. I mean, it's something that we all can take a part of, and regardless of who started it or any of that, we are all in a collective pot together, and we're singing harmonious.
Are you a tough taskmaster? You exude joy there, leader.
He's smiling.
But I have to say,
Dr. McCorby's face.
I think Angela described you accurately. He's smiling in response to this question too. If you're not watching, tell the truth. You're tough, right?
Well, it's got to be excellent.
Yeah.
In whatever we do, it must be excellent. And so what we have to do is do the work in order to make sure that what we do is excellent. That's in anything that you pursue in life.
How long are you on tour this? I know you're here the next few days, obviously the conservatory, and then music. How long are you on tour?
So this one is a week. We go by legs. This is the 5th leg. We started in January, and so we go out for 10 days or so. People go home, take care of their business at home, then they come back together. So this is the 5th leg of our tour. We started about the 2nd week in January.
And do you feel different response from audiences in different parts of the country?
It's amazing. In any part of the country or the world, they respond to this music. And so it's really exciting.
I was trying to figure out the spiritual connection that I mentioned before, and then your wife introduced herself.
Yes.
And she was wearing the exact same multicolored hokas that I was wearing.
Yes.
You think that's the connection?
That's it. It's multicultural.
It's deep.
Multicolored.
It is really.
It's sneaker culture, Jim.
Sneaker culture. Thank you.
Like Jim is like on the cutting edge.
Don't mention the guy you're about to mention. Thank you very much.
I'm not.
So what are you performing next there, Angela?
Well, I think the next song that we're singing this morning.
You better know, because you're about to do it in about a minute.
Old Time Religion.
Old Time Religion.
Yeah, when the saints go marching in.
Come marching in.
Okay. Do you want to?
Yeah,
I just can't wait.
Why don't you guys go get over there and get ready, and we'll remind folks that if you're just getting a little taste of this and enjoying all of it like we are, you have no idea how much this is brightening our spirits. You can go to musicworcester.org or AmericanSpiritualEnsemble.com to get more information.
Before you start, I just want to read one text of many. This is for all of you. Thank you for Walk Together Children. Absolutely uplifting and goosebump inducing. And I think that speaks for all. We're thrilled to have all of you. It's beautiful and really, really moving. Doctor, it's on you again.
Give me that old-time religion. Give me that old-time religion. Give me that old-time religion. It's good enough for me.
It was good for my dear mother. It was good for my dear mother. It was good for my
And we've been speaking with the members of the American Spiritual Ensemble. Of course, you can catch their performance at Worcester's Curtis Hall this Saturday, April 6th. Go to musicworcester.org. They're also playing some shows at the Boston Conservatory this week on April 3rd and 6th. You can get more information about them at americanspiritualensemble.com.
Can you guys, you don't have headsets, but you can just nod to me. Can you just become our house ensemble? Is that, what do we have to do to make that happen,
We'll
Doctor?
join you whenever you'd like.
Oh my God, that was, I'm telling you, that was as beautiful as anything we've ever heard here.
Thank you.
Angela,
Thank
Doctor,
you.
and all of you. I wish we had time to speak to everybody. Thank you so much. It was beautiful and joyful.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Wow.
Thank you.
Yes, it makes everything better, doesn't it?
Thanks so much.
It's not over yet. More smart conversation about community issues is up ahead with Jim Browdy and Margery Egan on Boston Public Radio. Right after a news update from NPR. Stay with us here on GBH 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you. And Comcast, offering the Xfinity 10G network, designed to provide a connection for home networks so everyone can be online at once, even during peak hours. Xfinity.com. Henry Louis Gates Jr. uncovers the surprising family trees of two people who were raised by artists, actor Michael Douglas and writer-director Lena Dunham. Watch Finding Your Roots tonight at 8 on GBH2.
Trusted. Local. News. You're listening to 89.7 WGBH, HD1 Boston, online at gbhnews.org. GBH News with NPR. What matters to you.
I'm Jim Browdy, ahead on Boston Public Radio, live from the...
Pat you out. It's all ahead on Boston Public Radio 89.7 GBH.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Lakshmi Singh. Cyprus says ships carrying life-saving supplies to Gaza are turning back a day after an Israeli airstrike killed 7 aid workers. The victims worked for celebrity chef Jose Andres' World Central Kitchen. The organization says it has paused operations in Gaza as its staff mourns. Anguish as an aid worker discovers his friend's remains at a hospital. Israel says it will conduct an independent investigation into last night's airstrike. NPR's Jennifer Ludden reports a convoy was hit in Gaza despite having coordinated its movements with the Israeli army.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu called the deaths tragic. Military spokesman Daniel Hagari says he expressed condolences to World Central Kitchen's founder, Jose Andres. The 7 people killed were delivering food that had just arrived by sea, work Hagari called a vital mission.
We also express sincere sorrow to our allied nations who have been doing and continue to do so much to assist those in need.
The leading United Nations official for Gaza says nearly 200 of its aid workers have been killed since Israel invaded Gaza last October after a deadly Hamas attack. Jennifer Ludden, NPR News, Tel Aviv.
President Biden and former President Donald Trump have secured enough delegates to win their parties' respective nominations from member station WUWM in Milwaukee. Mayan Silva reports on Wisconsin's voters.
Wisconsin voters are weighing their options, which not only include Biden and Trump, but also former GOP candidates, third-party choices, and the uninstructed entry, Wisconsin's version of uncommitted, which activists are encouraging over the war in Gaza. But with a rematch of Biden and Trump all but sewn up, some voters just want to throw up their hands in resignation. That includes Tracy Davis, a black voter from Milwaukee.
I simply see a choice between one old white guy and another older white guy.
The campaigns will try to drive up excitement between now and November in this state where presidential candidates have eked out victories by very slim margins. For NPR News, I'm Mayan Silver in Milwaukee.
Stocks are trading sharply lower on the heels of stronger than expected manufacturing numbers. Here's NPR's Scott Horsley.
A survey of factory managers shows manufacturing activity expanded in March for the first time in nearly a year and a half. While the numbers suggest a long slump in manufacturing could be ending, that could complicate the Federal Reserve's effort to curb inflation. Odds that the central bank will cut interest rates in June slipped after the factory report, but remain better than 50-50. And investor enthusiasm for former President Donald Trump's social media company has faded somewhat after the company reported losing $58 million last year on revenues of just $4 million.
It's NPR News.
Good afternoon. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. We begin again with sad news from Red Sox Nation. Larry Lucchino, whose tenure as Red Sox president included 3 World Series championships, with the first one ending an 86-year drought, has died. He passed away this morning. During his 14 years in Boston, beginning in 2002, the Red Sox reached the playoffs 7 times. They won the World Series 3 times. Lucchino was a Pittsburgh native and was responsible for bringing general manager Theo Epstein into the fold from the San Diego Padres, where the two had worked. Together, they helped the team break the curse of the Bambino. Lucchino left the Red Sox to become chairman of the Worcester Red Sox, who play their first home game of the season a little later today. Its first pitch is at 3 o'clock. Franchise owner John Henry calls Larry Lucchino one of the most important executives in baseball history. Larry Lucchino was 78. New England Sinai Hospital in Stoughton has officially closed. The rehab and long-term care hospital is owned by Steward Healthcare, which announced the closure in December. Financially struggling companies said at the time the hospital was losing money because of low reimbursement rates from high number of Medicaid and Medicare patients it served. Governor Maura Healey has blasted Steward for what she calls financial mismanagement and has demanded that the company sell the 9 hospitals that it operates in Massachusetts and leave the state. In sports, the Celtics in Oklahoma City tonight, the Bruins in Nashville, the Red Sox in Oakland, and the Revolution play Club America. 48 degrees in Boston. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Fidelity Investments. A dedicated wealth advisor can help create a wealth plan for a full financial picture. More at fidelity.com/wealth. Fidelity Brokerage Services, LLC. This is NPR.
Welcome to Hour 2 of Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy and Sue O'Connell.
Woo-hoo.
And I know this is confusing. Sue is not technically sitting in for Margery, who's off. She'll be back, I think, Thursday. Sue is sitting in for Andrea, but it's going to get more confusing in a minute. We're live from the Boston Public Library, streaming online at youtube.com/GBH News. The reason it's more confusing is we're now joined on Zoom by Andrea Carbal. who was here yesterday and was almost here today. Andrea is, of course, former Public Safety Secretary for Massachusetts, the former Sheriff of Suffolk County, and a BPR contributor. Hey there, Andrea. How are you?
Hi, Jim. Hi, Sue. Thank you.
Good to see you.
No one understands, but it's good to have you anyway. We're glad you're here. Thank you.
All right, let's jump into this, Andrea. Trump gets the bond that people thought he wasn't going to get. Of course, this is not the $454 million judgment. That still stands as is, but he did get a $175 million bond for the reduced amount that he had to put forward. Someone actually is guaranteeing that Donald Trump is going to pay something back. What do you make about all of this?
Well, first, I think it's a shame that the appeals court lowered the bond because the first reason is that I don't think anyone else would have gotten their bond cut in half.
I agree.
No matter how much the original bond was, absent a showing that it was so clearly over the top by the judge. And to my knowledge, there was no such showing here, showing that Judge, I think it's Erdogan, made it, it's Engoron, I'm sorry, Judge
whoever he is.
Made
so many, yes.
Yeah, made a huge mistake. I don't think that happened. And at the same time as he was claiming that it was impossible for him to put together a single bond, and keep in mind that Letitia James, the Attorney General, responded by saying you could get a series of smaller bonds and make the amount. But, he chose not to do that. He was also publicly saying that he had $500 million, liquid $500 million, but he just didn't want to spend the money on the bond. He wanted to spend it on campaign, which is also a lie because the money he spends on his campaign he gets from his donors. But in any event, they did, basically have this judgment. And he was able to post it. The bond company, it's not going to be public, I don't think, unless somebody leaks something, what the deal is to get the bond, but it's assumed that he had to pledge cash and collateral. And in his case, collateral is his properties. So at least some of his properties have to be put up for collateral. And that, he had to do that in order for this bond company to agree to pay the judgment if he loses the appeal. That's what a bond company is doing. When you post a bond, that's that company saying, if you lose your appeal and you fail to pay, we will pay this judgment.
I want to reiterate or emphasize something you said a minute ago about an ordinary person would not have the amount for the appeal cut, not in half, but even more than half, 455 down to 175. I was listening, as you know, my favorite anchor is Anderson Cooper, and he asked the question last night that I thought was so ill-informed when he said of his lawyer guests, well, these amounts aren't supposed to be punitive. And I felt like yelling at the TV and saying, it's not punitive, it's the amount the judge found was the damage that he had caused by his behavior. So it's not punitive at all. And so this whole thing is really, it's really troubling. And it seems to me, the last thing is it guarantees that nothing is going to happen in this case before, other than what's already happened, until after the election. Yet another one. Is that not fairly obvious? This appeal is going to go on for months.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a fair statement. And he also posted the full 98.5, I think,
for E. Jean Carroll,
$1 million bond in the E. Jean Carroll case. Yeah. And to him, it is worth it because it puts everything off. He's just trying to hopefully get to the point where he's president and he can make all of this go away in one form or another, whether it's just taking a bunch of foreign money sort of blatantly and out in the open to satisfy these judgments, or doing away with the criminal prosecutions.
To that point, in my neighborhood growing up in Revere, if somebody loaned a lot of money to somebody who might be going to jail and seemed very guilty, we would wonder what that person was getting in response for that, what the quid pro quo was here. And since Trump is obviously running for president, voters, I would imagine, should be concerned why this bond company said this looks like a good risk for us.
Right. And it'll happen, I think, on social media. People will do a dive into the company to see who owns the company, to see who has interest in the company, and sort of try to connect those dots. The issue is whether or not that kind of information is going to actually penetrate the minds of voters who are so currently inundated with misinformation and disinformation that it's hard to get truth through.
You know, I want to switch to one other Trump thing quickly, if we can, Andrea Carbal. There was a gag order in the Stormy Daniels election interference / hush money case. It did not apply to either the prosecutor himself, the judge, or their families. The prosecutors yesterday said, we'd like to extend this not to the judge and the prosecutor, but to their families, because Trump had been savaging, based on incorrect facts, of course, the daughter of the judge, who has nothing to do with the case. And so the judge did extend, at the request of the DA, the gag order. But here's the question for you. MBTA is posting, Trump posts Fox News clip slamming judge's daughter literally hours after new gag order. Former President Trump posted a video of Fox hosts slamming Judge Merchan's daughter, Lauren Merchan, less than 24 hours. You're a former prosecutor. You go back before Judge Merchan today or tomorrow and say he is clearly, it's indisputable, is violating your gag order. What relief do you ask for? A fine means nothing. Another $10,000, $50,000 fine. What do you ask the court for?
He asked the court for jail, but, you know, he should have been imprisoned on contempt a long time ago. I cannot think, and I have racked my brain, I cannot think of a single defendant that I have either known in my career, or even a famous defendant I did not know but read about, who would be getting away with this. The context of this is a person who we know incites other people to violence, who we know he knows he can incite other people to violence. And we know that is what he is calling for. He reposts violent memes. One of the actual current president of the United States hogtied gunshot in the back of a truck with MAGA bumper stickers on it. This is insane. The idea that they continue to treat him like with some sort of, as a former president, with some sort of status that he should not be accorded is insane. And every judge, the one thing, one of many things, but one important thing that every judge should be making clear is that when you are in my courtroom, everyone is treated equally in my courtroom. If you weren't running for anything at all, if you were running for governor, if you were running for dog catcher, you would be before my court on contempt. And I would find you in contempt. I would have a hearing, and then based on everything that we've seen, fine you in contempt. He has no defense to this. And he's been warned a million times. It's this not knowing where he could be held, what facility he could be held in, how you will deal with the Secret Service, what the blowback will be. Some judge has got to have the courage to treat him the way he should be treated, because in not doing so, justice in both direct and indirect ways is being denied all the rest of us who would never, ever, ever get away with a fraction of what he's gotten away with. And it is not a defense that he is running for office. He chose to do that. This is not a political season. It is his indictment season. He's chosen to be political during the time of his indictment, not the other way around.
You know, the thing that's I couldn't agree with every word you said more. The thing that makes it particularly difficult for the judge, whatever the reason that none of them put him in jail for contempt of court, is this is the judge's kid. And as opposed to bad-mouthing a witness or a juror or the prosecutor, it makes it really hard. But I am with you. If there is equal justice and treatment under law, then the answer is he has to be treated like any other defendant who keeps violating these orders does. What?
He knows that,
of course
too.
He
That's
does.
why
Of course
he's
he does.
continuing to go after the daughter. But that's precisely why the judge should make the case.
I agree.
Do it anyway and make the case.
We're talking to Andrea Carbal.
Andrea, so I was out at a concert last night seeing Olivia Rodrigo, and she had a subtle pitch to the mostly female, mostly under 30 audience about the importance of women's health She didn't say anything about an election. She didn't say anything directly, but the response gave me hope that people are engaged. That brings us to Florida, where there's two issues that tend to get people going. One is abortion on the ballot, and the other is marijuana. What do you know, and what are your hopes about Florida and Democrats, or worries about Florida and Democrats in this upcoming election?
Well, I was not surprised that the Florida Supreme Court, it tends to be a conservative court, upheld the Florida ban on abortions, which is after 15 weeks of pregnancy. They initially upheld that, and then they upheld the even more restrictive 6-week ban. So it's important to note, most women don't even know that they're pregnant after 6 weeks. So this 6-week ban is a de facto ban on abortion. It just pretends to have some leeway, some period of time where they can be gotten legally. And it's absolute nonsense. But the court also ruled that there's a proposed constitutional amendment that would guarantee access to abortion anytime before 24 weeks. And the court ruled that constitutional amendment can go to the ballot. So that's, to your point, that is why it is so incredibly important that people who care about this issue, and women especially, turn out to vote. And what is encouraging, what does give me hope, is that in the 4 states that have had some sort of measure related to the provision of reproductive rights, reproductive freedom, and abortion on the ballot, it has won overwhelmingly. And so
I'm sorry.
There's a good chance that will happen, I would hope, in Florida as well.
Well, it's not just the question itself in protecting reproductive freedom. Sue and I were talking before, one of the acts of brilliance, and it's hard to use this word when you're talking about George W. Bush, but his campaign in 2004, I think.
2004.
Was to put on the ballot around the country in a number of states, including pivotal Ohio, was a constitutional amendment banning same-sex marriage. And the thinking, which proved to be correct, is it brought out conservative voters who voted for George W. Bush, which helped. The thesis here, with which I totally agree, when you have a 1-2-3 punch, the first punch is a virtual ban across the board on abortion, as you said, with a 6-week ban is now the law of the state, with an opportunity to protect the right to choose in a constitutional amendment, with a question that would legalize marijuana, which tends to bring out younger voters. It's not inconceivable that those two ballot questions, a la what happened in 2004, could swing what is generally seen as a red state now. Florida, I didn't know till this morning, Aiden looked this up, Trump only won 51.2% of the vote there. Really narrow margin in the last go-around with Joe Biden. It's not inconceivable that the turnout for those ballot questions could produce that 1.2% margin that could totally change this presidential election. Unduly optimistic?
No, I don't think it's unduly optimistic at all. The reason that I'm sort of smiling is that I would so deeply love it if people actually turned out to vote against a fascist, rapist, who's a fraudster, and all the other things that I listed yesterday when I was on the show. But if that isn't enough, then I will gladly take people turning out for reproductive freedom and to legalize recreational marijuana. And I think the marijuana question, actually I prefer to call it cannabis, but I think the cannabis question is really pivotal because Florida, I believe, has had medical cannabis legal for quite a long time. The system down there is a bit messy. I know from my days at Ascend, but I think that the desire to have legal recreational access to cannabis is huge. And I do think that actually is going to increase turnout.
I'll take it any way we can get it. So if we can turn to something that is personal, and we're going to discuss this in a broader sense with our listeners later. Journalists who travel on Air Force One with the president are being taken to task because and the word that there is being used, stealing presidential trinkets. Now, you apparently, if you're a journalist on Air Force One, and you're a former prosecutor, so you're the perfect person to talk to, what you are given is a pack, this is true, a pack of M&Ms with the presidential seal on it. My response to that would be, not enough. So what some people are taking is everything from presidential seal pillows, anything that is not nailed down, they're taking from the plane. And I have to say, as someone who, along with Paris Alston, when we interviewed the vice president, Kamala Harris, at the convention center, and the best we could do was take away paper napkins with the vice presidential seal, I am all for the theft. Where are you as a former prosecutor?
I actually think they don't have any business taking anything from the airline. Oh, my
God. What is wrong with you?
I really do. I mean, but here's why. I think that it goes to the diminishing sort of lack of respect that I really worry about, particularly with the press, particularly with the kinds of questions that you hear being asked in such a disrespectful way. It's sort of all wrapped up in, shouting "you lie" during the State of the Union.
Wait a second, liberals are taking pillows too. It's not just the right.
No. I completely. I'm not saying that it's conservative versus. I'm saying that
journalists have been stealing things for a very long time, Andrea. Before our divide and the.
But you're just defending your right to someday be on Air Force One and snatch a pillowcase.
Yeah.
My favorite thing in the world is when you're covering an event and there's food and the journalists don't know if it's for them or not, and then they just kind of hang around and start eating it, and then someone will say, "I'm sorry, those are just for our guests," and they go, "Oh, I didn't know," and they take a plate and they go off. It's just, I think, in our nature.
Are you really troubled by this? In all seriousness, are you troubled by somebody snatching a presidential sealed pillowcase?
I think you're minimizing it. Here's the thing.
Go ahead.
Sue's point, people have probably been pilfering along the way for many. The fact that it has gotten to the point under Biden, who was a senator, who was vice president, who is not new to people doing this on Air Force One, the fact that it has gotten to the point where they had to issue a warning means this is not a little pilfering here or there. They're probably robbing the thing blind.
Okay, so one last question on this, and then we'll move on. So you're assigned as a journalist to Air Force One, and they hand you a pack of M&Ms with a presidential seal. Do you say, "Thank you, that's plenty"? Come on.
I probably do.
Oh, my
God. See, she's a better person than we are, clearly. There's no doubt about it.
No, it is not that I'm a better person than you. I didn't say that I'd never take anything from anywhere. I just said Air Force One is the president's plane. You're there because we allow the press to travel with the president in this country. I'm just saying, could we get back to, the sort of respect for the institutions, which I think is being, chopped at on a daily basis.
We can get back to that as soon as we take the pillows. Yes, we can. So we actually have a political, how should I say, je ne sais quoi, a back and forth between one of the people on this show.
Kind of a fourth, not so much of a back
Okay,
yet,
Kelly Ayotte is a former Republican senator from New Hampshire. Am I correct so far?
Yes.
She is running for the Republican nomination for governor.
Correct.
To replace Governor Sununu, who is not running. And apparently a journalist in town, that would be you,
That's
Sue
me.
O'Connell, local
in
woman,
Massachusetts.
is engaged in, well, tell us what's going on with you and Kelly Ayotte.
I'm a little perturbed about her continued attacks on Massachusetts as she is running for governor of New Hampshire.
That's a good point.
She has launched that she doesn't want New Hampshire to become Massachusetts. I'll remind you that we had a Republican governor for 8 years here in Massachusetts, so it's not as if whatever the Democrats did over the past year is like the worst thing in the world. And I am just losing my patience with people posting things that are not true.
What'd she say?
And she posted over the weekend, "Sad state of affairs that Massachusetts cares more about housing for illegal immigrants than for our veterans who have defended our freedom." And that's about the migrants being moved to a building that's planned to be demolished and has been empty at the Chelsea Soldiers Field home. And also, they're not illegal immigrants. They are migrants who are here legally with the permission of the governor. So I kind of engaged. Andrea, I'm sad to say she hasn't engaged back with me, but I'm just tired of these candidates lying. I think it's a lie.
It is a lie, and it's a knowing lie. I mean, it wasn't really that long ago when something like this would doom a person's entire campaign, entire candidacy, because it would be something that was so clearly able to be fact-checked, and they would be called out on it. But we've moved to a place where Kelly Ayotte, is running to the right of Sununu in order to become governor. So that if you are playing to that base, you lie constantly because that is who your base is. Your base wants to hear those lies. They vindicate beliefs within the base. And you actually, I am with you 100%, Sue. The lying is just completely insane. But I also believe that she does not care.
No, she does
that
not.
It's a lie.
No. And I'm also tired of the using humans. I know this is not, again, to our earlier point, is not new. Using veterans, using soldiers, using migrants, using immigrants as talking points to make a point on a lie that you're making, right? There are about 600 homeless veterans in Massachusetts. About 30 of them are completely unhoused. And it's like if we want to house them, it's not going to be putting them in a building that's about to be demolished over at the Soldiers Field home. If you want to solve the problem, solve the problem. Don't use them as political pawns.
No, I think that's absolutely right. The same thing happened with the migrant that's charged with rape. And their go-to is, see, it's a wave of crime. And it's like, no, I think that probably happened given the overwhelming numbers. It happened more because he was a man than because he was a migrant. Because that, if you look at the numbers, those are the people who generally commit rape in overwhelming numbers. It has absolutely nothing to do with his status as a migrant. And you see it all the time. It's where we are right now, and it's sad.
Let me just say, to sum up these last, I am anti-lie and pro-pillow stealing. That's where I am on the issues, if anybody's wondering. Andrea, it's great to see you. Be well. You look great.
Thanks,
Thank you. Andrea Carbal.
All right, Andrea Carbal, of course, is the former Public Safety Secretary for Massachusetts and former Sheriff of Suffolk County and a BPR contributor. Up next, Lee Pelton of the Boston Foundation. Stay with us. You're listening to Boston Public Radio 89.7 GBH.
Behind every headline,
Massachusetts' 8th year in a row with more than 2,000 overdose deaths,
is a human story.
Nobody's going to recover without a roof over their heads, whether it's transitional housing, sober housing is important.
Having a place where they can potentially be rescued should they overdose or even linked to treatment is an intervention that makes sense.
GBH News with NPR. What matters to you?
Our programs are made possible thanks to you. And New England Recovery Center, providing inpatient addiction treatment in state-of-the-art facilities located in Westboro, Mass. Learn more at newenglandrecoverycenter.org or by calling 1-877-MY-REHAB. And Mass General Brigham Health Plan. Innovative plans, coverage, and a broad network of doctors. Mass General Brigham Health Plan, with you every day. For more information, you can visit massgeneralbrighamhealthplan.org.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy, Sue O'Connell sitting in for Margery. We're live at the library, streaming online at youtube.com/GBH News. Before I introduce my next guest, we're getting a huge amount of feedback on the American Spiritual Ensemble that performed at 11:30, and as well we should. People are asking about tickets. Again, you can get tickets for either the Boston Conservatory concerts or the ones at Music Worcester at musicworcester.org or American Spiritual Ensemble. And if you didn't hear them, check out the podcast tonight. They were spectacular. Joined now by Lee Pelton. He's the president and CEO of the Boston Foundation. Previously served as the 12th president of Emerson College, also a member of GBH's Board of Trustees. Hello, Lee Pelton. How are you?
Hello. Good to be here.
See you.
Good to see you.
Great.
Lee, I have the pleasure of driving through Nubian Square at least 4 or 5 times a day. Right. It's my neighborhood. It's where I live. It is so exciting to see everything changing in such a good way, in such a way where there seems to be a lot of community involvement. You know, that area, and I love telling folks this, one of the oldest spots in Boston, and especially that square. Can you talk about the significance of Nubian Square to the city?
Well, in some ways, some people would say that's a geographic center of the city. And as you well know, it has a very rich history. And by 2030, for our 400th birthday, it will be a changed place in a remarkable way. Most, as you probably know, and I think others may have read, that the what used to be the Benjamin Franklin Technical Institute, which is now the Franklin Cummins Institute, Technical Institute, renamed because the Cummins family, Bill and Joyce, gifted to the BFIT, as we call it, $12.5 million gift, which will allow them to move from their location in Berkeley down, not far from here, to Nubian Square and Harrison Avenue, and it will become really one, if not certainly one of the anchor new facilities in Nubian.
And the great gift of that too, of course, Benjamin Franklin had invested in the Franklin Institute, and his money's continuing on, and now it's moving to a place where it's going to have a new home.
Yeah, a bequest a few centuries ago.
Aisha Francis, who's the president, was on with me in Greater Boston a while ago, and talking about the school's legacy, training young people in the trades. Here's just a little bit of what she had to say.
Things that make our everyday world tick and are underrepresented in terms of training opportunities that are accessible and available to all. So that's what we do, and we do that with pride.
And by the way, it's not just Franklin Cummings Tech. We had Ismail Samad on, I don't know, maybe a year ago when Nubian Market was opening. That has exploded. The stuff there is fabulous, and it's also quite pretty, and has been an anchor. What's the impact beyond the community itself when there is this explosive development of wonderful things? What's the impact beyond the borders of that community? What kind of message does that send, do you think, Lee Pelton?
Yeah, it's not just a message. I mean, in real terms. By the way, she's a transformational leader in every respect.
President Francis.
Yes, she is. And so imagine there are 1,000 so-called non-traditional students who will be enrolled there. 3/4 of those students are people of color. 2/5 of those are first gen. And almost every student, it's 98%, will receive some form of financial aid. And so this is a way to move this population into a variety of technical industries, and both for jobs and also to create their own business going forward. So beyond the impact of the educational experience that these students will have and what they will do after is really phenomenal, and will have an enormous impact on that community. You hear a lot these days, we talk about the Black Wall Street with a reference to Greenwood, Tulsa. And Ed Gaskin, who's the executive director of the Grove Hall Main Streets, wrote a really wonderful essay a month or so ago who said that the Black Wall Street is not about buildings per se, but it's about building capacity. And so that, for instance, in the Asian community, a significant portion of the dollar that comes into the Asian community nationwide is kept in the Asian community. If you think about the dollars that come to the white community, it's infinitely replicated in that community. In the black community, someone said that those dollars stay for about a half a day and then they go somewhere else, and that's because there are very few black businesses there, and so those dollars stay for a little while and then they go somewhere else. If you have a CVS, in Roxbury, dollars stay there for a little while and then they go somewhere else. And so part of the Black Wall Street, of which this will be an anchor, is to keep those dollars there. That was the brilliance of Greenwood, because it kept the dollars there in the community, and they recycled, and they were able to build wealth and equity in that particular way.
And that's one of the things, while you in concert with the Fed, we've discussed before, a number of other organizations are doing an update on the inequity, the wealth imbalance in this community. That's the kind of thing that affects that wealth imbalance down the line, correct?
Absolutely.
And the challenge there too, though, Lee, as I watch in the neighborhood, of course, is the more attractive the area becomes, the higher the rents are going to go up. I've already, I have a frat house across the street from me. There's mostly students on my street right now. It's that pull, that back and forth.
There is, and let's talk about this project. The contractors are minority owned. The designers for this building were two women of color. And so again, I like you, I worry about the gentrification, but some of the other projects, you think of Richard Taylor's project, the big project of Nubian Ascends, will have, and Haley House, which is expanding with several dozen units. Many of those are affordable units, and they will stay that way because the folks who have who have ventured into there understand the issues around gentrification and making sure that there's housing there that folks can actually afford, both rental and also condos.
What's the Boston Foundation's involvement? I mean, obviously you're the leader of the foundation and you're a big supporter. What's your actual involvement in some of these projects?
A lot.
Like what? Give us some examples.
I'll give you an example. So with the Cummings Institute, they needed to raise $47 million as part of their capital, and they've actually their capital stack, and they've actually did that in a 3-year period, so in a very short order. And they got some money from the city and other kinds of entities, and they also received a loan from us. This is a low-interest loan.
To do what?
To help capitalize the project. And you might ask, well, why not a grant rather than a loan? Because the value of the loan is, again, it's very favorable terms. It will help demonstrate your credit worthiness. Suppose a grant would not be able to do that. So we've been invested in that. We've also been invested in the Roxbury Community College, Center for Social Equal and Social Justice.
That's another, speaking of that, we've been remiss not mentioning a 50th anniversary of a really important institution in our community with another great leader, I should say. Right. So talk about Roxbury Community College for 50 years.
Well,
I don't mean you should take 50 years. We should talk about the 50 years, but go ahead.
I'll just take 5 years.
Thank you.
But, the thing that I want to point out here is that these are both Jackie Jenkins Scott and Aisha Francis, African-American women, transformational. They took two institutions and transformed it. And what they also have in common is that both their buildings and their programs are green. Mm-hmm. They really are preparing young people for the green economy. And so this 50-year anniversary, which I was at, they raised about $6.3 million for the gala. But they've also been able to raise a considerable amount of money to invest in this Center for Economic and Social Justice, which will be a corollary to what's happening in Nubian Square, in that it's a way of training young people and preparing young people in an entrepreneurial way for the green economy. And the building itself, both of these buildings are really green. And in fact, the Center for Economic and Social Justice is the first historically restored net zero building in the Commonwealth. using solar and heat pumps and geothermal heating and so on.
You know, we talk a lot about the people who benefit from their connection to the Boston Foundation, but not as much about the Boston Foundation itself. What part of your mission do things like you just described fall into? What's the goal of the Boston Foundation that caused you to invest in Nubian Square and Roxbury Community College in that center?
Equity, one word, equity. It sits at the center of everything that we do. It's creating equity, not just equity in terms of wealth, but also closing various gaps. And I say equity, and I think most people understand this today, although they probably wouldn't have understood it 4 or 5 years ago. There's a difference between equality and equity. Equality is about equal inputs. Equity is about equal outputs. And so that's where we're spending a lot of our grant making these days.
We're talking to Lee Pelton, the president of the Boston Foundation.
Lee, let's change over to the MBTA and how the board has approved the reduced fare program for low-income riders, riders between 26 and 64 years of age who make $30,000 or less will be eligible. And of course, this is in addition to, I have to always remind folks, there are already low income or reduced fares in place for folks with disabilities, for seniors, for students, and others. Can you explain to someone who may wonder, with the MBTA operating in a fiscal crisis, why it's important that we make sure we reach out to people and find a way to offer the equity to people to ride the T at this time?
Well, that's what it is. It does provide equity, and it really is a game changer for folks who are spending hundreds, maybe even thousands of dollars a year on getting from one place to another. And if I were to have a message to the Beacon Hill, it would be pass this, pass it. Because it deserves, we want to lift up all of our citizens in a special way, then this is important.
You're a little less skeptical, at least publicly, I don't know what you are privately, about Beacon Hill than I am, Lee Pelton. And one of the problems here, so people understand what you're talking about, this whatever the cost is, $30-40 million, I think up to $60 million in a few years, should be funded by the legislature. But Phil Lang, the GM, who, by the way, he will be with us on April 12th here at the library, not the Phil Lang, the MBTA board has said if the legislature doesn't fund it, which we hope they do, we will fund it. I don't doubt the intention and the desire. The legislature is not, on most issues, exactly groundbreaking. And the T is in huge financial distress, hundreds of millions of dollars of a deficit. Do you worry at all that the idea doesn't become reality because of the financial pressure on both the legislature and the T, or do you think this is important enough and enough of a public call?
No, of course I'm worried about it. I mean, I think we all should be worried about it, and but we have to send a message to Beacon Hill to pass this, because it's really very important for those who are at the lower end of the income scale that allows, and by the way, allowing folks to move to their jobs, and not having to spend, a third of their paycheck to do that. It's important, and it creates equity, it creates economic equity. So it makes good sense.
Let's stay on this topic that is uncomfortable. Why we are so slow. For example, I'm sure you read in the Globe story, you may have known this, I didn't know this, every major urban area in America has implemented lower rates for low-income people before us. Right. Last week, the legislature termed that neither Margery nor I like this revenge porn thing, but people know what it is. We are only the 49th state to make this. I could go down the list. We are allegedly the most progressive state in America, yet we are often at the end of the line when it comes to action. Do you ever, I would bet you're a pretty thoughtful character. Do you ever think about why it is that we're so slow to move on things that matter so much to the people here?
Yeah, I think, I love this state, by the way.
So do I.
I love it, but we are often so eager and quick to pat ourselves on the back for being, we're the most progressive in this, and we're the most progressive in that. And to tell the truth, we are progressive in some things, but not all things. That seems to be part of our culture.
It's funny. It's almost like we live in our aspirations rather than the work that we have to do. Whenever we have new reporters come to NBC 10 from across the country, their expectations of how progressive they have heard Massachusetts is never matches at all the reality of what we're actually doing. It's a very interesting self-projection.
Well, I mean, of course, people want to live in their aspirations. Why not?
Well, they should maybe act on their aspirations. I mean, a good test of this, I know you care a lot about affordable housing at the Boston Foundation. You personally, there's a $4 billion bond bill that the governor has. I know people are tired of me saying this, they go on a 5-month vacation at the end of July. This is an opportunity to show they really care about what most people think is the #1 issue in Massachusetts.
It is the #1 issue, in both in terms of price and also in terms of availability, and demand is high because the supply is low. And as you heard me say, I mean, the list price for a home, median list price for a home in Massachusetts in August of last year was $936,000.
Unbelievable.
I mean, $636. In Boston,
close to $1 million.
It was $936,000.
All right.
We're talking to Lee Pelton.
Let's talk about the reparations discussion that's been happening across the country. In San Francisco, there was a $5 million plan of reparations that some folks would be eligible for that, $5 million each. So far, all they've received is an apology. I would be of the mind that both the apology and the payment would be, it's sort of the take accountability and then make amends and then move forward. What's your take on what some of the challenges are around this, especially here in Boston, where I know we have not seen the movement on this issue that I think some people expected?
Well, I think Boston is moving forward in a very deliberate way. I think they're about a year behind where they had hoped to be at this time, but they're still moving forward in a deliberate way. And Mr. Feaster, who is the chair, I have great faith in him. And I do believe that the mayor is also very sincere. I would say that over the last 5 years, and this is just my impression, I don't have any data to back this up, but it seems to me that sort of the hard, antistic, sort of antithetical opposition to reparations is softening a little bit across the country as people are beginning to understand more about reparations. By the way, when we talk about reparations broadly, it's not simply about making cash payments. There are other aspects to reparations around a repair. Most of this begins with telling the truth, and telling the truth leads to apology. So, I think there's some softening here. We all have to understand that reparations is not new in this country. The first reparations program was to white people in 1863 when Lincoln freed slaves in the District of Columbia and adjacent areas, and the slave owners were given reparations for the loss of their property. The black freed slaves were supposed to get, remember this, the 40 acres and a mule, but they didn't get it because Lincoln died in office, as we know, and his Southern vice president nixed that. And then, of course, reparations to Japanese Americans who were interred, twice reparations, once in the 40s and then in 1991. Under Reagan, I think $1.6 billion total there. So it's not new in this country, and the resistance is this toxic zero-sum thinking that we have. If they get this, that means I'm not going to get something, and that's not the case. Reparations will benefit all of us. It's estimated that our failure to close the racial wealth gap has cost this country about $16 or $17 trillion over the last 20 years or so. And if we could close it here in Boston or in the Commonwealth, it would add about $6 billion to our economy. So it will lift all boats. I don't know if that message is getting through, but it's still a message worth repeating.
Well, there are a lot of people in this country, with all due respect, who don't want all boats lifted, even if they believe
That's
that.
true.
By the way, speaking of reparations, we've mentioned this a lot. What is Owed is the reparations series our colleague Soraya Wintersmith has brilliantly put together. Check it out. It's a terrific podcast. You'll learn a lot. I learned a lot. Lee Pelton, it's great to see you. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Lee Pelton is the president and CEO of the Boston Foundation. He previously served as the 12th president of Emerson College and is a member of GBH's Board of Trustees. Up next, Dope Labs podcast hosts are here, and they've got the tips on how you can safely view next week's total eclipse. You're listening to Boston Public Radio 89.7 GBH.
Sawfish are huge.
Talking about 10 to 14 foot fish that has a large weapon on its front end.
They're also endangered and have been dying mysteriously in the waters of southern Florida.
I hope that this is a transient thing. Unfortunately, we don't know. And that I think really is the most terrifying part about all this.
I'm Ari Shapiro. That story on All Things Considered from NPR News.
Today at 4, here on GBH News 89.7.
Support for our programs comes from you. And Mass General Cancer Center, dedicated to providing compassionate care and cancer specialists who are experienced in the cancer you have. When you hear the word cancer, their team is ready. Learn more at massgeneral.org/cancer. And the University of Massachusetts Amherst, dedicated to environmental research to mitigate the effects of climate change and committing to power the campus with 100% renewable energy by 2032. umass.edu/sustainability.
I'm Zoe Matthews, senior producer for Boston Public Radio, and you and I are listening to 89.7 WGBH, HD1 Boston, online at gbhnews.org. GBH News with NPR. What matters to you?
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy, Sue O'Connell sitting in for Margery. Margery will be back, I think, on Thursday. We're live from the library, streaming on youtube.com/GBH News. Another mention of the brilliant American Spiritual Ensemble. Technical mistake here. Their show tomorrow is at Emmanuel Church, not the Boston Conservatory, despite what their website says. So for more information, go to americanspiritualensemble.com/events. And if you didn't hear them at 11:30, I'm going to keep saying it. You haven't heard anything like it, go see them. We're joined now by the people behind the show Dope Labs, a podcast that combines hardcore science with pop culture and a healthy dose of friendship, which is true. It's hosted by Titi Shodiya, a materials scientist. I asked her last time what that is. I still don't know what it is. We'll get to it in a minute. An engineer. And Zakiya Whatley, a molecular biologist. I actually know what that is, sort of, anyway. Podcast is on a hiatus, but in the meantime, they've teamed up with the Museum of Science. Actually, the president, Tim Ritchie, was just in the Newsfeed Cafe a few days ago for an event later tonight ahead of next week's fabulous solar eclipse on Monday, I think. Here's a bit of them talking about the upcoming eclipse.
When there is an eclipse, we're starting to hear a little bit or see a little bit of the sun's background singer.
I know what you're talking about. It's the corona, right?
Yes, the corona. So corona is Latin for crown, and the crown of the sun is its outer atmosphere. And that atmosphere will be visible because the moon will be blocking the sun's surface.
So, Titi and Zakiya, it's great to see you again. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having us again.
Talk to us about the space, I don't mean the outer space, but the space that you live in with the podcast and with social media. How do you pick how you're going to tell in this great, wonderful way you're doing it that I understand and it's fun to watch and your relationship is great? You know, how long does it take for you to say, okay, this is as much as they can take and this is only as long as we have?
They have to shut our microphones off.
Yes.
You all have to kick us out of here. But when we're looking for topics, it's always something that is really interesting to us and what we also see people talking the most about on social media, in the news. We really want to talk about things that people care about at the moment and show the science behind it. Because once they care about a topic, we know that we can get them to listen.
Are you as into this? So I am not an outer space kind of character. I am so wildly into this solar eclipse thing. I can't. Why? Why am I so excited? Do you know?
Well, I feel like there's this exciting energy around the solar eclipse. First of all, it's rare. It doesn't happen often.
Yeah.
The last time we had a solar eclipse across the contiguous United States was in 2017, and that one was much narrower. This one is going to be wider. So many people are going to be able to participate, and I think some of why you're so excited about it is, we've talked about this on the podcast, is this element of celebration.
Absolutely.
You know, I think when things happen like this, like a solar eclipse, it doesn't happen often. It's during a special time, and you get to experience this rare event with so many other people, and I think that's something to get excited about.
Titi, the thing I'm worried about, we had a guy from Sky and Telescope here the other day, and Jamie, our lead producer, broke to us that he's calling in sick on Monday, so he can go to New Hampshire and do the 100% thing.
Yeah.
From what Kelly told us, and I read, Titi, it's going to be anywhere from 93 to 95% in complete, I don't know if that's the right word, in Massachusetts, in Greater Boston. What does that mean for me?
That means that at a specific time you should head to the NASA website. It'll tell you the exact time that you should be getting ready to see the eclipse.
You mean when there's maximum coverage?
When there's maximum coverage, yeah. So here in Boston, you're going to have from 93 to 95%, like you said. So that means that 93 to 95% of the sun is going to be covered by the moon. That's a good percentage.
You know, the thing about the participating into it, I remember the first eclipse that I made my little box with in third grade, like
the
in
little pinhole viewer.
1969
What do
or
you
something.
see? I don't get it.
Well,
When you make the whole, what do you see?
You get to see the sun, the moon actually move over the sun without looking at it, so it's a shadow. And it's when you're in the third grade, it's
I guess that's
exceptionally
so. Okay,
exciting. But
okay.
I also remember the last one I was in Puerto Rico. I had forgotten my glasses. I had forgotten that the eclipse was that day. And then it all happened, right? And you talked in one of your clips that we watched, I think on Insta, that the animals feel it, everyone feels it. It's this magical thing that happens. We hopefully understand why it's happening. I can't imagine what the animals and our ancestors felt, right?
Right. Over time, you know, in the history of eclipses, this has been predicted by other cultures that are, you know, have a strong astronomical culture, but also people have talked about it in religious texts. You know, when you go back and look, even in the Quran, it says like, oh, the moon was red, or, you know, different things. And those, we think those are lunar or solar eclipses based on how they're being described. And so people didn't know what it was before. Now we do know what it is. And I think the animals still will react kind of odd. So I'm curious to see, you know, how the dogs that we're going to be in
Chihuahua?
Austin.
That's me. That's my Chihuahua, Daisy.
Okay,
Hi,
so
Daisy.
we're going to be watching Daisy.
Yeah,
See how Daisy reacts.
We'll see.
So, Titi, there are two kinds of people, it seems to me. There are people like Sue O'Connell, who when she's a kid looks through a little pinhole in the piece of paper, and there are people like Donald Trump who just look up with no glasses and stare at the solar. Do you have any observation about that? He was the president when we did that. Anything you want to say?
It's never wise to look at the sun at any point in time. You should always have protective gear because the sun can very quickly damage your eyes.
It's on fire.
It's a ball of fire in the sky. You should not be looking at it. And so having protective wear is absolutely important.
Okay, well, that's not a good answer, but thank you. Could you explain to me, before we get to what you're doing at the Museum of Science, I really am embarrassed because you were great, the two of you, last time we had you on. What is a materials? You guys met at Duke, right? You met at Duke, right?
Yes.
Okay, what is a material, in English for me, simple.
A materials scientist is a scientist who studies the chemical makeup, the structural properties of materials. So anything, it could be textiles, it could be this table, it could be, my specialty was electronic and photonic materials.
Who? No, what is that? What does photonic mean?
So photons are from light. And so all of this equipment here, those are types of things that I understand, like the circuitry and everything that goes along with it.
And did you tell us why you two decided, science drew you? I can't remember. Well, share with us again. What was the appeal when you were a little kid?
I think science has always been really exciting. First of all, it was hard. I like things that are difficult.
Really?
A glutton for pain. And I think also, you can use the lens, like the scientific method, you can use it to answer so many questions. The topic doesn't have to be scientific for you to have that scientific approach to hypothesize, to observe, and to experiment.
That's Zakiya Whatley. She's joined here by her buddy Titi Shodiya. In a second, we're going to talk about their thing at the Museum of Science. What drew you when you were a little kid, Titi?
Well, for me, my grandfather was also an engineer. And
really?
Once I found that out, that kind of put me on the path. But I was always really curious. I took a lot of things apart in my house, remote controls and, dolls and teddy bears. I just wanted to see what's inside of everything.
But you're sort of, we talked last time about this too. You're sort of aberrational when it comes to STEM. You're not aberrational as women because they're significant. It seems to me the number of women in STEM is exploding in a positive way. But people of color, not so much, particularly women people of color. Is that changing in a positive direction, or you guys still outliers, or no?
Well, I think, we see a lot of folks entering these fields, and I think the difficult thing is persistence and promotion, right? To be able to make decisions and to be able to continue to further the scientific advances. So I don't think we are an aberration in that sense, and I think we just need more kind of policy-wide or systemic changes that make those fields more conducive to different folks joining and staying.
Yes,
and staying, right? Yes. So you mentioned your love of facts and science and taking things apart, and I think of myself as a very practical person, and I like to know how things work, and I like facts. In the past 5 years, dealing with people's reaction to science has made my head explode. It has been very difficult. I've had a number of conversations with real people where they say, well, they keep changing things, and I say, well, that's the scientific method, right? They invent something, they discover something, and then they all try to disprove it. What a great environment to be in. How do you feel right now in this environment? It does feel a little bit like we're back with Copernicus a little bit, trying to explain what's happening in the eclipse and all that. How do you feel as scientists in this environment right now, where it seems like science is just doubted, but not in the scientific method way?
I think for us, we always come from a perspective where we believe that it's the job of the scientists to get people to understand. So when we see folks that are skeptical or denying certain things, we know that we need to lock in. And so we don't want to make it a conversation where it's like, we're smarter than you. You have to listen to us. We want to have that conversation. Why do you feel this way? Who told you that? Let's figure out how you got to that conclusion and why we know that conclusion might not be the correct one.
They should have been here for our electric vehicle conversation. They would have done a lot better than we did.
But can we stay on this? We had Anthony Fauci on a year or so ago.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember he was panicked about this anti-science movement, I hate to call it a movement in this country. Those who want to listen in response to what Titi said are not the problem, in my opinion. Those who refuse to listen are a huge problem, not only when it comes to what you two do, but you talk about COVID and public health and all that sort of stuff on your podcast and in your work. So it's a real breaking through is really hard when people get locked in.
Right. But I think we let the science guide us there too. First of all, we know that a lot of this is behavioral, right? And so there's a little behavioral psychology that tells us that people exist in groups. They feel like if I'm a part of this social group,
you're right about that.
I will believe whatever this social group believes, and
I won't deviate.
Yeah, I won't deviate. And so people will risk physical death over social death sometimes. We saw that during the pandemic. I think also we're both, very energized by the number of folks getting involved in science communication. It's very different than it used to be. It's not just Bill Nye anymore. Although he just recently had a photo shoot. I don't know if you all saw it. Looking very cool. Very cool.
Very
cool. I said, go Bill. Bill. Yes. And so we see folks that are getting involved, and that feels good to us because they can reach audiences that maybe we can't.
Do you two still like each other?
Yes. We love each other.
Okay. So what's happening at the Museum of Science tonight?
Oh my gosh, we are having a live show show where we are doing the science of everything. So we're talking about a lot of different topics and showing the science behind it. And it's always a really great time. We have a lot of fun. You come and laugh a lot, learn a lot, and join our little community that we've created.
Well, you've developed a relationship with the Museum of Science. Last time you were on, if I remember correctly, you were doing a film with them. Was that?
That's still in the works. We're working on a planetarium film, and so we're really excited for that.
And where's that come from? Where did the Museum of Science connection happen? I mean, it's one of the great museums, I think, anywhere.
Absolutely.
Just spectacular.
It's just like people would, if we were politicians, you would say, well, what makes you want to be the president? Working with the Museum of Science is just like that. There you go. They're the premier institution.
What are some quick tips? If I want to take a picture of the eclipse with my phone, can I do that?
You can.
You get a piece of paper, you poke a hole in it. I'm sorry.
I'll be out there with my tube.
There are filters that you could buy off of Amazon. They're not very expensive that you could put in front of your camera on your camera lens on your phone, and you can take pictures of the eclipse. For your eyes, for you to take some mental pictures with your eyes, you need to have special eclipse glasses. You can get them through the Museum of Science at mos.org. And what you want to look for where you're buying them from, we have somebody that has one.
Oh, yes. People have their eclipse glasses.
You just need to make
those
sure.
Those are Nova GBH ones. We still have some left. So you can go back to our coworkers back there if you want them. We still have a few, but go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yes, you just want to look for an ISO label on there that basically says that those glasses have been tested and proven to be able to block out sunlight. When you look through it, they're completely black.
And even if I'm not driving to New Hampshire or Texas, wherever I am,
wherever you are across the contiguous United States, you will have some partial eclipse. If you're close, I recommend trying to reach the path of totality. But if you're not, you can still enjoy it. You don't have to make the pinhole box that you made before, but you still can see, even if you hold a colander or something like that, you still can see the moon eclipsing the sun.
I'm not an anxious person, generally. I'm not. I am really anxious about clouds, I have to say.
I know.
And it's, the stupidity shrinks tell you, don't be anxious about things you can't control, and you can't control that. But are you not nervous? There's this huge buildup.
Yeah.
And look at this crap today. It's a cloudy day. It's generally cloudy in much of April, at least in New England. Are you worried about this or what?
Yeah, that's something that we've been talking about. Like, what if there's clouds? So our plan is that if there are clouds where we are specifically, that maybe we could drive to another location, because the eclipse is going to be moving across the country. So if you go from one city to another, you might get a little bit more time with the eclipse. You want to drive safely, but hopefully in that place there won't be any clouds.
We have a morning of game plan. We basically want to be eclipse hunters, like storm hunters. We want to be eclipse chasers.
Where are you going to be?
Austin, Texas.
Oh, actually, the guy Kelly Beatty from Sky and Telescope is flying 200 people to Austin. So what's the big draw about Austin, Texas?
There are a lot of activation events, and I don't know.
What do you mean?
A lot of organizations are putting things together. Austin is this hub for the eclipse. It's going to be early on in the eclipse path, so that gives us an opportunity. So it's at 1 p.m. I think. So we can continue traveling northeast if we'd like to try to catch the eclipse later. And so that makes it exciting. And then I think also the Simons Foundation is doing a lot of work there.
Yes. NASA has a location there. So
So
and tonight is and in our part of the world, I'm sorry, Sue, it's 2 to 4:30 is what New England is going to experience, right?
That's for the partial
breadth
eclipse.
Of the whole thing,
but
right?
make sure you check the time for it as close to being 95% as you
And that's
can
4 minutes or something, right? Okay.
All right, just want to learn a little bit more about the two of you. When you're not doing this and you're watching movies, do you watch movies that have things to do with quantum physics, time travel, or are you totally in some other department that totally doesn't make you both correct what you're seeing on the screen, saying that can't happen that way, or get ideas?
Me and my husband are really into Studio Ghibli, so we've been watching Studio Ghibli movies. I try to just enjoy movies as they come. I think it's really important to let artists do their art, and so I just take a step back and turn that part of my brain off.
So you don't have a list of quantum physics problems?
No.
That you're seeing? No. Okay.
We like to have a good time.
Yeah.
I love horror movies, and so the ones that involve science fiction and genetic technology, I'm not quite right. I'm not able to turn my brain off like Titi is when I'm watching.
I shut it all the way off.
But I still have a good time.
The podcast is on hiatus, right now.
Yeah,
so
taking a
where
little
do we find you guys?
So you can still find us at Dope Labs Podcast on Instagram, on X, but also you can find us on the Museum of Science socials because we're doing a lot. We've done this digital series with the eclipse. We will be releasing some additional content the day of the eclipse. So even if you can't be in Austin or you have clouds where you are, you can find us at dopelabspodcast.com and Dope Labs Podcast on socials.
And if you haven't listened to the podcast yet, all of our episodes are available on every platform where you listen to podcasts.
Are you finding it hard to, as creators and influencers, working within the 1 minute that folks are required. Whenever we're
I
doing.
thought those short things we watched
They
of yours
were
this
great.
morning were fabulous.
They were perfect.
And you didn't feel
Right.
frustrated. They were like a minute and a half. They were great, I thought.
No, they are great. But to get there, it's such a process.
It's a lot of editing.
Yeah. Did you feel fulfilled when you're done with it? It's great that you get to do multiple takes on something, a series.
I think we really enjoy engaging with audiences in that way because we see that short form media is now becoming a thing with TikTok, and we really want to reach people right where they are. And if they want to only watch a 1-minute video, that's what we want to give them.
Well, that's because Americans have the attention span of a gnat. That's why. By the way, Charlene from Natick has more bad news. Forget clouds.
Oh.
Please warn your audience that central to northern New Hampshire is expecting 18-plus inches of snow between Thursday and Saturday, and Monday, obviously, is wear your boots. So, you still do it, Jamie. But
they're not letting you get away with that one.
Yeah.
What time are you doing your thing at the Museum of Science tonight?
7 p.m. tonight.
7 p.m. and there's still space from what I understand.
Yes, and tickets are free.
So all you have to do is register. Just come on by.
Fabulous. We love seeing you guys. Thanks so much. Good luck with your work.
Thank you for having us.
It's great to meet you. We've been speaking with Titi Shodiya and Zakiya Whatley. They're executive producers and the hosts of the Dope Labs podcast. Coming up after a short break, food policy.
If you're looking to clear some clutter this spring, start with your driveway. Consider donating your unwanted car, truck, boat, or other used vehicle to GBH. All you need is a clear title to get the gears rolling. We'll even provide the pickup or tow of the vehicle. Let us help you with your spring cleaning and continue to provide the news and information you depend on. Visit gbh.org/vehicle donation to get started.
Support for GBH comes from you. And Celebrity Series, presenting the Alvin Ailey American Dance Theater with contemporary dance favorites and Mr. Ailey's timeless masterpiece, Revelations. May 2nd through 5th at the Bach Center Wang Theater. Tickets at celebrityseries.org. And Babson College. Students can gain the know-how to become a successful leader at the #1 graduate school in entrepreneurship, ranked by U.S. News and World Report. Virtual open house April 17th. babson.edu/grad open house.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy and Sue O'Connell sitting in for Margery. We're live from the library, streaming online at youtube.com/GBH News. We're joined now on Zoom.
Of course, it's had this great, wonderful history. I'm going to let you tell the story a little bit first about what World Central Kitchen is for those who don't know, in your reaction to what happened.
Well, it's horrifying. World Central Kitchen is Jose Andres' disaster relief organization. So when there's a hurricane, an earthquake, a fire, they're always the first on the scene. I think it began when, under the Obama administration, Jose Andres went to Haiti a number of times and helped start cook stoves and ways of allowing women safely to gather wood and cook. He expanded it to Africa, and then it became disaster relief. After Hurricane Maria in Puerto Rico, he really made an international reputation. It's been less a question of going into war-torn zones, although Ukraine, he was the first in Ukraine to have the bravery to take his operation to Gaza was remarkable. And it's been, the world has applauded because, as we've all been reading, there is a historic famine projected to be striking Gaza within months. So unlike others, Jose just marched in, did it, got food there. A friend wrote last week that she was so proud to be able to help with pistachio pellets, which are the hulls of pistachios used as fuel so that the World Central Kitchen workers could heat food and make fires in Gaza. What happened last night was there was a convoy of 3 trucks, very clearly marked, including on the ceilings, because these were overhead strikes, and there are photos of horrible black holes and gashes where missiles dropped over enormous World Central Kitchen banners that were on top of these trucks. 3 strikes in a row killed 7 workers. At first, they were injured. Haaretz in Israel posted more information, including from the Israeli Defense Forces, that they had suspicion that there were armed terrorists in that caravan. Who knows if there were, but it's what they thought. But what's horrifying to read is that even after the first strike, as injured workers tried to get out and to safety, 2 more strikes followed the first, and 7 workers were killed.
By the way, we should say, to make this even more painful, Jose Andres, who I think is above reproach, has done work that nobody else on the planet has ventured to do, says that his people were targeted. And while Prime Minister Netanyahu says it was unintentional, it's an important thing to be resolved. And obviously the consequence of this is that those tens of millions of meals provided to people who are near famine status, World Central Kitchen is removing their people for understandable reasons. So the consequence is not just the loss of 7 good souls, or angels, as Jose Andres calls them, but the service that nobody provides like him.
And every other humanitarian organization won't let their workers face that kind of risk.
So we will continue to follow this and see where the truth lies, but the undisputable truth is 7 wonderful people have lost their lives, and a couple of million people have lost the source of life-saving food, which is just an incredible horror. We're talking to Corby Kummer.
Corby, we've talked a lot about how some of us try to make ethical and better decisions about the things that we eat when we're able to make the choices and have the ability to. I've been making an effort to buy more expensive eggs to represent, or they are more expensive because I'm choosing to buy eggs that are less harmful to the environment, less harmful to the hen. And not long ago, I found out that although my efforts to be a better human on this planet were not extending to the male chicks of the world. Can you explain what the challenge is to those of us who want to be good citizens on the planet and not harm too many animals in our efforts to eat them? What's happening with male chicks?
I think the main question is, why didn't we know about this?
Exactly.
Why hasn't it been uppermost in our thoughts, which is that chick culling, a kind of dry technical term for massacring male chicks, 6.5 billion male chicks killed each year, around 200 each second. It's just staggering. What is the it? It is when chicks are born, they're supposed to be being raised to lay eggs. Males, which are of no use in laying eggs and apparently have very tough meat, so they're not going to be raised for meat chickens, they're just routinely killed by people. Can you imagine the inhumanity of having to routinely just send hundreds and hundreds of male chicks to their death? So it's morally problematic in a big way. Europe has been starting to try to outlaw this. And in the US, there's new technology that would allow being able to tell in vitro if the chick is going to be male or female, and picking females so that you don't have to actually kill day-old chicks once you've determined their gender.
You know, first of all, day-old and the way they kill them, which we don't need to describe, is just gruesome. Unimaginably gruesome. I knew nothing about this. And so just so I understand, the science they're attempting to develop in some places in Europe would let you know in the egg what the gender of the chicken was, so that you could kill the chicken, male chicken, when in the egg, so you don't have to cause this horrible killing when they're alive. Is that
apparently it's some kind of imaging akin to ultrasound, where the non-invasive imaging of incubating eggs to determine the embryo's sex, and another is putting a tiny hole in the eggshell to sample analyze the fluid inside and resealing the hole often with beeswax. So these seem perfectly innocuous ways of preventing this needless death and destroying these males afterward.
You know, I'm going to ask a question that I know I'm going to be humiliated by asking, but I have no choice because I don't. Not only did I not know about that culling, don't you need a male chicken for a female chicken to produce an egg? Or no, you don't?
No, you don't.
You don't?
Oh, Jim.
Sorry, I was humiliated.
Oh, my gosh.
What are they there for then?
Good. Well, that's the question of all humanity and
to
everything.
annoy hens.
Okay.
To wake us up in the morning when we're
So if we
out
had no male chickens at all, we'd still be fine?
No, I don't think so. There's a certain percentage of eggs that are sold that are fertilized, but the vast majority of eggs that we buy aren't fertilized. They're just laid by the hens.
Yes.
Okay, so can we move? Well, actually, this is not it's whatever. So
13% sold and fertilized.
Thank you. There was a story in the Globe the other day about it's titled "Boston's Last Surviving Friendlies Has Closed," which is sad because it means no longer in the Boston area can you attempt to eat totally inedible food.
It's not
at
Jim,
Logan Airport. Now
we're gonna throw down over this.
Well, maybe we will. Corby, well, we have great faith in you, and you're our food guy. I have to be honest, we weren't sure you could handle the story alone. So we decided to import from Abu Dhabi, and I'm not kidding, from Abu Dhabi, the guy who wrote this story. He would be the travel writer for the Boston Globe, Christopher Muther from Abu Dhabi. Hello, Christopher. Nice to see you.
Great to see you, James.
Why are you in Abu Dhabi, by the way?
It sounded better than going to Fitchburg for the day, so I thought I'd...
Don't you wish to shame him for not being at the BPL?
That's a very good point. I will do that in a second. By the way, before we get your take on what happened to this last friendlies, which you described brilliantly, Christopher, you sent me a photograph this morning of a place you were in we're going to post this, in Abu Dhabi, which looked like a 24-karat gold cage. Can we put that up for a second?
Wow. Oh,
what were you, that's Christopher crouching in the middle of the gold cage. What was that exactly?
Well, they caught me at the border here in United Arab Emirates and threw me into the gold cage. It's a piece of art that's at the presidential palace.
Oh, well, there you go.
Okay, well, let's get down to it. What happened to the last friendlies at Logan, which you were not very kind to, I should say?
No, I mean, I had a love-hate with that friendlies because growing up on friendlies, I bet Sue can back me up on this one. It's such a part of your life when you grow up in New England in the 80s. And so it still had that like glow, that sort of fribbly glistening that drew me to it every time I was at Terminal A. And so I would always go to the friendlies there. The food would always be terrible. They'd always be out of stock with everything, but still I would go. And then went a month or two ago, and there it was, unceremoniously boarded up. My childhood memory destroyed. Not destroyed. It was just there behind.
By the way, it's not just Sue who's got a childhood memory. I heard from Jamie or Aiden there, Corby. You grew up near a Friendlies, and it was your hangout?
I grew up closer to Wilbraham than either of you, I am sure. I grew up just south of the Massachusetts-Connecticut border. We would often pass Wilbraham, which still has the home of Friendlies. trimmed hedge, the privet hedge.
I remember that.
By the Mass Pike. And it was the only restaurant in our small town. I grew up in Ellington, the adjoining town, Rockville, had a Friendly's. It was the big deal restaurant. And the Saturday lunch treat, where we would have big beef square patties on plain old sandwich bread, and the beloved, Christopher, you didn't mention, fudge ripple ice cream, which was completely fabulous, and only Todd's Paninis has made anything like fudge ripple, and it's even better, chocolate sluggo. But Christopher had fabulous lines throughout this piece. It's a hilarious piece. Like one of them is that the beauty of it about Logan, the then CEO said, is that there will be 7 million people walking right past our location. Christopher adds, McGuire was right. People did walk right past Friendly's, but not enough of them stopped.
So, Christopher, are there any American fast food joints in Abu Dhabi?
There are. I saw McDonald's at the airport this morning.
Is that really true? Now, before you go...
Maybe we could get a Friendly's there. You know, I was a waitress at Friendly's.
You were not.
I was for spring 1979 to December 1979. I was sort of suggested that it wasn't my line of work while I was Employee of the Month for asking folks if they wanted nuts on their sundae. I really was great at that. But I will say that the tuna melt, I still think of fondly. The hamburger melt, I think of fondly. And you never really understand how dirty it is in the ice cream world until you've worked a shift and gone home and have ice cream on your shoulder under your little outfit from reaching in and scooping out.
That's beautiful.
Yes, those little tiny paper corrugated cups of chopped, salted, toasted almonds.
Doesn't get much better now.
They were great.
Hey, before you go, Christopher, and you are going in a minute here, somewhere in Abu Dhabi, you mentioned that I think TripAdvisor rates 229 food serving places in Boston, and correct me if I'm wrong, and that the Friendly's at Logan was 228 of 229. Did I get that right so far?
Yes.
What was 229?
It said Jim Browdy's Pantry.
What is 229?
Honestly, now the order's gone because after my story, they took Friendly's out. So I kind of threw off the matrix. It's my fault now. So now we'll never know.
We'll never know.
Hey, Christopher, it was a great piece, and thanks for joining us from Abu Dhabi.
R.I.P.
Christopher
Friendly's.
Muther,
R.I.P.
we really appreciate
Friendly's.
it.
Thank you, kids.
Thank you. So it's not just Friendly's. Boston, was it called Boston Market?
It was called Boston
Market. It used to be
Market.
called Boston Chicken. And I have to say, when it first opened, I was a huge fan and consumer, not of the rotisserie chicken, but of the meatloaf, which I thought was fabulous. It was attempting, what was the spot that it was attempting to fill that it did so successfully for years, Corby Kummer?
Well, you know, it's before there were Costco loss leader rotisserie chickens available at the supermarket. And so it was how to put dinner on the table for a family and feel less shameful than if you went out to Friendly's or McDonald's for burgers. But my own personal recollection, since we're getting all warm and fuzzy and nostalgic, is across the street from where you are, and I'm spiritually looking at 745 Boylston Street, the Atlantic was the inaugural tenant of the renovated 8th floor. And right 8 floors below was a Boston Chicken.
I didn't know that.
And it ventilated right into my office, which was a corner office. And the landlord of the building actually came up and said, well, this office shouldn't smell like a chicken place. So it was new, it was strong. It also, like Panera Bread later, which did it much better, it had a kind of classy transitional era between, sheer Burger King, Arby's type fast food, and what Panera became, which was like nice wood paneling, a decent menu. It was sort of classy. And it was just superseded by other places and supermarkets that did it better.
Yeah, it's hard to go to Boston Market when you can get that rotisserie chicken and some ready-made mashed potatoes. It is really totally devastating.
By the way, have you seen the size of the rotisserie chicken at Costco?
I don't know. No, I haven't gone to Costco because I have an addiction problem.
It would fill your tub.
Yes.
It is the biggest chicken I have ever seen for like $4.99. It's incredible.
What I would like is a figure on how much money they lose, because apparently it's a loss leader and it's worth it to them.
All right, so
we're talking
gonna
to Corby Kummer.
quickly talk about the $20 minimum wage that's going to happen for some fast food workers in California starting on Monday. Corby, I've heard, of course, obviously people should get paid more for doing the work that they're doing. And then I'm hearing from franchise owners that, listen, we're the ones that are going to have to be absorbing this cost. It may mean, fewer people working. What's your take on what the immediate impact and long-term impact on this change is going to be?
So what's happening? The minimum wage is going from $16 to $20 all of a sudden overnight at quick serve restaurants that have over 60 locations nationally. This is going to be much better for workers who are no longer just the teenagers making car and movie and scooter money on the weekends, but people struggling to feed their families. It will help them pay the rent. It will help them live. But the actual franchise owners are maybe not going to be able to pay their rent. They have to fire staff like bookkeepers. They worry that they won't be able to hire enough people to keep going. They certainly are putting their expansion plans on hold, and they're struggling too. A number of things surprised me about this, which is that I didn't know it was a deal worked out behind closed doors, and that the trade association representing fast food franchise owners supported it.
I know, that was incredible.
It's franchise owners who are so angry about it now.
So how do you explain the disconnect? They bought into it, which I thought was brilliant on the part, I assume, of the activists that advocated for the $20 an hour, and then all of a sudden the coalition fell apart. What happened in between?
What I assume is that they got a number of carve-outs. For example, expanding or restricting the number of restaurants it applied to those that had 60 or more national locations, which would lop off a lot of smaller chains and franchises. So probably they thought this is going to save a lot of our members and will be helpful. And so presumably it was much worse than what they thought a law they didn't have any participation in would be. This is a fascinating story that we have to watch evolve because there's data showing that in other places where minimum wages increased, wages went up and employment did not fall. So there were actual positive employment effects. So as genuinely alarmed as franchise owners are about how are they going to be able to pay their own rent and the high franchise fees that they can't get around and they are responsible for paying, with this jump in wages, will there be a great decrease in employment? It's an evolving story, as we call it.
By the way, I should say, I think that one of the examples of where there was not a decrease of employment was in the same state with the same workers, where the minimum wage over a number of years was raised from $8 to $16 with a projection there'd be great job loss. And according to researchers, there was none. So we shall see.
That's it.
Hey, Corby,
California.
it's great to see you, and we thank you much for your time. Corby Kummer. Thanks
Corby
so much.
Kummer is the Executive Director of the Food and Society Policy Program at the Aspen Institute and a Senior Editor at The Atlantic and a Senior Lecturer at the Tufts Friedman School of Nutrition, Science, and Policy. All right, you ready? Up next, we talked with Andrea, who shamed us, but she's not here right now. So we're just wondering, journalists are swiping little tiny things from Air Force One. Would you do that? Do you do that now? What little items do you take home from planes, restaurants, anywhere else? We promise we're not going to rat you out. You're going to give us a call or give us a text. You're listening to Boston Public Radio 89.7 GBH.
I'm Jared Bowen. Coming up on The Culture Show, Chris Fleming. His comedy is off the wall. It's absurd, and for a long time it's been niche. But now he has a comedy special streaming on Peacock, and he's selling out shows, but that doesn't mean he's selling out. From there, it's the president of Colby College on how they leaned hard on the arts to revitalize Waterville, Maine. That's on The Culture Show today at 2 on 89.7 GBH.
Funding for our programs comes from you. And Trinity Rep, celebrating 60 years with August Wilson's Fences, a Pulitzer Prize-winning drama returning to Trinity Rep's stage now through April 28th. tickets, and more at trinityrep.com. And Safety Insurance, offering a variety of home insurance products to cover your home's increased value. You can ask an independent agent about safety insurance. Safety Insurance. We'll help you manage life's storms.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy, Sue O'Connell sitting in for Margery. We're live from the library, streaming online at youtube.com/GBHnews. It's time for one of our favorite genres of talker, where we solicit you to call in and confess your crimes. Apparently, journalists, as we discussed earlier with Andrea Carbal, journalists on Air Force One, it's the president's plane obviously, can't keep their grubby little hands off the president's property. Branded pillowcases, glasses, gold-rimmed plates are among the items that have allegedly vanished from the jet. So we want to ask you, are you also sticky-fingered in your travels? Towels and bathrobes from hotels, silverware and ramekins, I love that word, from restaurants. What else seems to disappear when you appear? The number is 877-301-8970. You can call or text. Where's the line between, I guess what we call complimentary goodies and kleptomania? And let's be honest, if something is really small, isn't it just begging to be taken? 877-301-8970. It's always good when the two hosts are on other sides of an issue. You and I are on the exact same side of the. So what are the kinds of things you have, what's the euphemism, taken?
Five-fingered, pocketed. I think I'm in the realm of, I famously said earlier that Juliet Kayyem, the famous Juliet Kayyem, had
know who she is.
left behind a Secret Service pen. It said Secret Service pen at the GBH studios, and I took it.
Yeah.
And then I texted her. Actually, I thought maybe because it was Juliet, it actually was a listening device.
Yes.
So I spoke into it and said, Juliet, can you hear me? Can you hear me? I have your pen. And I posted on it and said, I took your pen. I'm not giving it back. So I'm going to take this GBH pen home with me.
That's worth about 10 cents.
I'm going to take any kind of paper products that have, like, if I go to a hotel and it has paper with a pen, I take that. Those are the things I take.
That's the big items you take in hotels?
I got caught shoplifting when I was in 4th or 5th grade, and that was it.
That's a little different.
You know, it was enough that I don't want to get ever in a situation where I'm taking something. But free food, like, you know, if I show up and I'm working and there's a party platter out or something, I'm right up there taking that.
Well, it's free food. I mean,
right,
that
but it may
doesn't
not
really
be
count.
for me. It might be for the participants.
If you see the free food.
Yeah. How about
you go to
Jim?
New Hampshire. You know, if it's a party thing,
when we're at the
like
primary,
a Republican or Democratic Party, or for journalists kind of thing.
Yeah.
I don't take like televisions. Did you read this piece? There's a piece in The Guardian. Hotel thieves aren't stealing toiletries, but framed art, TVs, a fireplace. And what they say, which is totally counterintuitive to me, the higher income and more hoity-toity that the customer, the stayer in the hotel, stayer, is that the word?
The guest.
Guest, thank you. In the hotel is, like in a 5-star kind of thing, the more likely they are to actually steal a TV or a piece of art from that thing. Christopher Muther and I have talked a lot about how every single toiletry thing is gone in your room, and then you go in the hall and you take everything from the cleaning person's wagon if it's high-end kind of things. I have to admit, I've taken a towel or two. I have considered taking a robe, and I won't tell you whether I acted on that or not, but you're always worried that if you do take something like that, they have a little thing on it, and it's going to set off an alarm as you leave. But see, the beauty, I don't want to say that I've thought a lot about this, but I have thought some about it. You could theoretically be caught with a robe from a hotel and in good conscience say, I didn't know I had it in there. I was wearing the robe and I packed it. If you have like a television in your suitcase, I would say it's really hard to do that. If I were on the plane, as I said to Andrea, and I had an opportunity for presidential stuff, everything that was not nailed down, I would stick in my briefcase.
Well, Jim, you're not alone. There's some artistic history with this. There's a Friends episode where Ross famously goes to a hotel, which he wasn't expecting to go to. We tried to cancel it. Let's take a listen to how Ross feels about hotel amenities.
Could you have some complimentary toiletries sent up to my room? Thank you. Okay, toothbrush, toothpaste, razor, mouthwash, deodorant, dental floss, Band-Aids, shaving cream, aftershave. And I feel like I'm forgetting something. Is there anything else you have that I haven't asked for already? Yeah, Go ahead, set up some tampons.
Further proof that was one of the worst shows in history.
It is not.
In any case.
In the toilet paper situation, I learned very early on as a small business owner that if someone asks to use the bathroom for the bay window staff and they have a backpack, they're taking all the toilet paper out of it.
It's
Swear
funny,
to God.
Funny you should say that.
Oh,
we
why?
have two anonymous BPR. That would be Boston Public Radio staff people. Here's the question they pose. The toilet paper rolls in the bathrooms at GBH are complimentary goodies, right? And they go on to say, I've totally never taken some, but they couldn't be softer or more double ply. Another anonymous text says, I refuse to pay for paper bags at Stop and Shop. I've also been known to borrow interesting pint glasses from restaurants. 877-301-8970. By the way, in a moment of seriousness, I don't know what the line is, but I really do believe there's certain things that it's okay to take.
I will say that if I'm trying to check out and I'm self-checking out and I'm trying to get someone's
go for it.
attention. No, I don't. I don't just steal. But if I'm like, I can't get this isn't the right price, I think it's more, and they don't come over, I'm like, that's it, it's over. I'm just keeping it.
Okay, before we get to the calls, has anybody in the audience, how many of you in the audience
have stolen?
Have, quote, not stolen,
oh, sorry.
taken things from hotels or restaurants? Raise your hand.
Oh, my goodness.
This is pathetic. It's like 6 of them, and we're supposed
7,
to believe the
8.
rest of you never did? That is really either a lie or very embarrassing. In any case, 877-301-8970. What is takeable and what is not takeable? What is ethically takeable and what is not?
All right, Liz, you're in Hull. Why don't you give us a little primer here on what you think we can and cannot take from hotel rooms?
Hi, Liz.
Well, it's not a hotel. When my husband and I were in France, they would serve water in these little carafes. And I took 2, and
Sure.
they are flower vases. And that was, 13 years ago, 14 years ago, and they're a nice memory. And I don't think they miss their small carafes.
So is that when someone who is a person of principle, like Andrea Carbal says, what's your rationale for taking something that is not yours? Is your argument they didn't miss them? What's your argument?
I'm a pretty good tipper, and they buy them in bulk anyway. I make up for it karmically, I think.
I think the karma response
that.
is a good one. I like that, Liz. Thank you. Enjoy the vases. We really appreciate your call. 877-301-8897. That's another thing, by the way. The whole advent of Airbnb and Verbo and all that sort of stuff, we're not at a hotel. You don't have to walk by the concierge or whatever. That is a more, what shall I say, seductive kind of thing.
But usually the Airbnbs I've been in have been very not overly done, so if you took a lamp, they would miss it.
I didn't know taking a lamp. They counting all the silverware? Do you think they're counting the silverware?
Well, I don't get so. What kind of Airbnbs are you staying at?
They don't have silverware in the...
I don't always get a kitchen.
Okay. By the way, well, I don't want to embarrass some of our coworkers. Let's go to, is it Dormo? Is that how you pronounce it? I'm sure that's brutal. In Worcester. How close was I?
Oh, Dermot.
It's Dermot.
We can say that.
Sorry, that was really embarrassing. Dermot, it's good to have you. Welcome.
Thank you. So I work in a brewery here in Worcester, and we have these special branded pint glasses that people love to steal. We probably lose about 2 dozen of them a week. But I say go for it because it's a little bit of free advertising.
Exactly.
And
So,
I must admit,
go ahead.
when I go to another brewery myself, I usually take one of theirs if it's a special one that looks cool.
Doesn't your employer expect there to be 2 dozen taken every week?
Of course, yeah. It's built into the cost, and they consider it worth it.
Okay, so if the employer were
level.
standing at the door of the brewery and they saw someone walking out with a pint glass, would they say, is that yours, or what would they say?
I don't think they would say anything.
Oh.
I know I wouldn't say anything for sure.
Fine. Well, you're my kind of person, Dermot. Thank you very much for the call. We appreciate it. 877-301-8970.
I had a friend that whenever we went to an expensive restaurant, she would take a fork.
Yeah,
And that
it's like a memento.
It's a memento. That's it. But I mean, it's it does add up. But the business, we say it's free or we're taking it, but it does end up getting built into the cost.
Yeah, I understand
that's
that.
how it goes.
Well, but when we were younger and people still smoked, do you remember what people took as mementos from restaurants?
Matchbooks.
Matchbooks, yeah. But nobody smokes anymore, thankfully.
now we
or
have to
very
steal.
few do. So you have to steal silverware.
Just put the matchbooks back out. We'll stop stealing.
By the way, this is sort of like cheating on your taxes, which Margery and I discuss every. It's one of those old chestnuts, moldy old chestnuts, as we call them. My belief, and I know this doesn't show much faith in humankind, the criterion for most people about taking, not a TV, but like silverware, stuff like that, is not what's right and wrong, is are you going to get caught? Don't you think that's the primary
Well, I would
criterion
say
for
that,
people?
Jim, except if we look at driving, and I know that people are crazy driving and there's all kinds of problems, but generally, when you think about the number of cars that are on the road every single day and the rules that people actually obey, and it's to stay safe and it's to be okay, it's not because you're afraid of getting a ticket. So I do think generally people do not do things out of fear of getting caught. It's just not
because they're
wanting to do it.
moral. Well, Neil from Leominster says, my wife will order coffee after a meal just to see what the creamer comes in to see if she may want to take it. And your wife is my kind of person. Anonymous texter says, just like the famous line in The Godfather, take the shampoo, leave the TV. That's pretty clever there, Anonymous. Pam in New Hampshire, you're next on Boston Public Radio. Welcome to the show, Pam. Hi.
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 First time caller.
Yeah, thank you.
And just first time able to call because I'm not driving.
Okay, good. We're glad to have you. What's up?
I'm a real moralist on the subject at hand. I think when I was a kid, I was a little more light-fingered. But over the years, I've known people who owned restaurants and lost salt shaker after salt shaker just for the heck of it. And it's a big expense. I worked as a temp at one point for Raytheon, and when school opened, everybody would rush down to the commissary to get paper and pencils and erasers for their kids going back to school. And everybody, I was a temp, I was urged, get down there, this is good. And I just think it's a high cost. I think that pens that are named, and even ashtrays in the old days, I think the businesses wanted people to take them because it was free advertising. But past a certain point, I think it's what they used to call larceny.
So let me ask you, Pam, it's obviously you've spent a lot of time thinking about this. Why do you think that is?
I was a prosecutor for a while.
Another one.
Okay.
See? You and Andrea
There you go.
Carbal. That's what
the
it is.
deal.
You're in the right spot.
What do you want to say, Pam?
Just one more thing.
Yeah.
Do you remember Frank DeFrito's steakhouse?
Yes.
Sure, yeah.
It was alleged they had alarms in the steak knives. So if you pinched them, the alarm went off. I don't know if that was true. But when I was in law school, I used to study up at the social law library, and somebody cut cases out of the new books.
Oh.
Well, that's really
that's
really
bad.
sad. That's a very painful story. Pam, thank you for your first call. Please call us again really soon.
You know, the thing about office supplies, when I worked at the Boston Phoenix, they actually...
How many places have you worked at?
I've worked in a lot of places.
I mean, you're incredible.
I've had a hard time keeping a job.
Okay,
Don't tell anybody. But when they would lock up the office supplies. So if you wanted to go get Post-its, you had to have your manager sign a sheet.
Is that really true?
And you had to find the floor manager to let you in to get one pen and one Post-it. But today the kids don't have printers at home. Today the kids don't use pens, so no one is stealing anything because there's nothing to use anymore.
By the way, here is an anonymous texter. You have to explain this one to me. My aunt left the hotel after a wedding and packed a small suitcase with all of the items she got from the room cleaner's cart. She then proceeded to drop the suitcase. It fell open. She asked the staff to help her put everything back in her suitcase. The best part is that she wasn't even related to us. We just called her Aunt. Could you explain that to me?
Yeah, so one thing you really don't want to do is if you're in the hotel and the service card is out, do not go to the service cart and help yourself.
Why not?
Because they get really angry at you.
What do you mean?
You can ask for something. You can say, can I have a little bit more soap, or can I get X? But and this especially happens. I know a friend who did this at the Beverly Hills Hotel, to our point earlier about the more money you have, the more you steal.
Well, they have the classier things.
They
too,
would just go through and just help themselves, and it's a bit like eating a buffet in a 5-star restaurant. So if you're stealing it from your room, they're a little bit better about it, but if you go help yourself from the cart. This person, obviously, who they weren't biologically related to the aunt, but there is, again, that is sort of built in.
But wait, because you're screwing the cleaning person? Or?
I'm not sure. I think it's the cleaning people just have a sense of ownership over their cart, and they don't want you messing with their cart.
How do you feel about that?
I agree with them. It's their workplace. It's how they set their cart up, and it's what they do. And I've never had anyone say, no, you can't have more of this.
So you should ask.
You have to ask. Just don't think it's... And they're also watching you on the cameras.
That's another good point.
So if you're just helping yourself through the carts, you're...
How embarrassing would it be to get caught stealing silverware from like a restaurant or a hotel? I mean, think about it for a minute.
Yeah.
What do you say if it's caught in your suitcase? It's pretty hard to explain it.
Yeah, it's hard to explain it.
Yeah.
Well, you could just say you saw a ghost, and it was haunted, and you just want to make sure you protect it. So
Lauren, you were apparently in Marblehead, and you're now on Boston Public Radio. Thank you for calling. Hi.
Hello.
Hello.
So I share some of this with you, but I have evolved.
Mm-hmm.
It's very little at this point in time. So when I was younger, I ski raced, and I really loved, and it really took great measures, but I loved to steal when I would go on to away races, really cool wooden signs, up north. So that was kind of my thing during my I don't know.
Like street signs or store signs? What kind of signs?
Well, trail signs.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's not really good for a person who's trying to find their way out, if you know what I mean. But
I know.
Okay, so what happened? What caused the evolution? What happened to you?
Well, I don't know. I just hope we evolve. But I have a confession to make.
Please.
One that I'm proud of, very proud of.
Mm-hmm.
So having my mom in an elder care environment at $15,000 a month,
Oof.
And then I would have to micromanage basic care, I obviously was bitter for years. And so nothing, you had to still buy shampoo and things like that, but they did provide toilet paper.
That's nice.
I loved, with all of my heart and soul, stealing toilet paper from there on a regular basis for years. It just was my only revenge to the whole elder care.
I have bad news for you, Lauren. I think most of the owners said, if you give us $15,000 a month and you steal a roll of toilet paper, we can probably deal with it. It's a fair trade. You know what I mean there?
Well, you're right, but I took a lot, and it was all I had, self-defense.
That's beautiful. Lauren, thank you for your honesty. We really appreciate you sharing that with us. I just realized this doesn't fit in this category, but it's an opportunity for me to both admit a crime and to praise myself for atoning for it.
There you go.
I've said this on the air before. Do you know that when I was a little kid and I was collecting for UNICEF, do you do that at Halloween? Is that what you do? 1 year only, I took the money.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, and by the way, I was, in all seriousness, I felt horrible about it for years. It was like $6.50. And a good friend of Margery's was the PR communications person for UNICEF. And maybe 40 years later, on NECN, is it still NECN?
Yes.
NECN, on television, she was a guest on the show. This is virtue signaling, actually. I shouldn't have said this. I wrote her a $100 check. And that didn't really make
okay.
Is that okay?
No, that's taking accountability, apologizing.
Is it?
Making it right and moving
Aiden
forward.
says it's not.
No, he's
I don't
against
think it is either, actually. I think it was more about praise for my
No,
virtue
good job.
after
Good
being
job,
a thief.
Jim.
Did you ever take the UNICEF money?
No, I did once accidentally keep money, but then again, I wrote a check to cover it.
Who'd you keep money from?
AIDS Action Committee. I didn't realize
Oh.
I had a whole bunch of money in cash that people had given me for one of the first walks. But as soon as I realized I did it, I
Well,
wrote
that
a
was
check.
unintentional,
Yeah.
so it's a whole
So I didn't know. I haven't
kettle of
stolen any
fish.
money.
Okay, well, I
Cash
did
that I can
intend
think
it.
of.
Nadia, you're in Norton. We're talking. By the way, the reason we're talking about this is because it appears that journalists on Air Force One with President Biden are stealing everything that's got the presidential seal on it. You know, pillowcases.
Listen, taxpayers
gold
paid
rim
for
plates.
that. They can take it if
That's
they
a
want.
good point.
It's
Nadia,
taxpayer.
where are you on this issue?
Oh, Jim.
Yeah.
Thank
you.
My daughter lives in the Seaport, and every time I visit, it costs me $30 to park. Every coffee shop that she takes me to that I have to buy the coffees, they're $11 lattes. So when I'm at that bar and they turn that little screen around and the tip starts at 25%, it is fair game. Anything on that counter goes straight in my purse. Everything.
By the way, I am.
Crayons, paper, everything.
By the way, it's like sticking it to the man kind of thing. You totally support
No, I
Nadia's
do.
position.
And my mother used to have a saying too, which is they can afford it.
Exactly.
Right? So my mother would, if she was asking for something more and I'd be wincing, she'd be like, they can afford it. They can afford it. But again, I think to Nadia's point, it's also not just a mom and pop little coffee shop. It's some big place
Massive
that
chain,
is really,
That's a good
charging a
point.
lot of money for something. And you're like, they can afford it.
Nadia, how good does that feel?
It feels fabulous, Jim.
Yeah.
It feels fabulous.
When we were looking for cars,
You can hear it in her
all
voice.
the cars that to this point, to all the cars that we went to look at,
You and
as
your
I
kid.
said, my Ruby and I went for months driving
Thanks,
cars,
Nadia.
and we left with a lot of bottled water. We left with a lot of tea. We left with a lot of snacks, and it just became this joke. We'd walk in, we'd have an appointment, and they'd say, "Would you want some water?" And I'd say no, and Ruby said, "Yes, we do." And she'd go over and get 2 waters, and because they can afford it. and they
Nobody
want us
thinks
to buy a
that,
car.
but nobody thinks that's wrong.
But you're only supposed to take what you need, which is sort of the things about these things that are out, which as you can tell.
Well,
I've been-
Nadia has like a quid pro
No,
quo
Nadia has
kind
a
of
whole
thing.
thing going
Yeah.
on that I really enjoy.
I
as well.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
And the lattes probably are 11.
Yeah.
We only have 30 seconds. Are we going anywhere, or are we just saying fare thee well? We were going to Ellen in a car. Those 30 seconds are yours, Ellen. Go.
Yes, hello?
Hi. You're on.
Hi.
Hi.
What I wanted to say is, and I think this is a completely ethical purchase or a steal grab, the little teeny tiny Tabasco sausage, little bottles that they're leaving now.
100%.
I can't help it. They're too cute. I take them.
How about when you go to a nice restaurant and the Heinz ketchup is in a little tiny glass
for you,
jar?
too.
That is gone, right? That's the
Jams,
same.
little jams
or
and
jams.
jellies.
Oh.
Jams and
I
jellies.
plead the fifth.
Teas.
But those little tiny Tabasco, that is just, they're too cute.
I'm
I
like
have to- it must be
hyperventilating.
mine.
I know, he's getting excited.
That's a great way to end the show,
If they bring that
Ellen.
over to
Thank
you, like a whole box of tea, and they say, take what you want,
I've died
there you
and
go.
gone to heaven.
There you
Okay,
go.
we're done. Thanks for listening to another edition of
What's trending? What's interesting? What's going on around town? We're talking.
Cellist Truls Merck and the Norwegian Chamber Orchestra, led by Iona Brown, with Haydn's first cello concerto.
WCRB programs exist because of you. And Mistral Music, concluding its 27th season with Serenades and Merry Pranks, a musical journey that unites winds and strings in a program of works by Schoenfield, Strauss and Docnogny, and Brahms' First Serenade, with guest artists from the Boston Symphony, joining Mistral members, including flutist Julie Skolnick, author of the memoir Paris Blue. April 6th in Andover, April 7th in Brookline. Tickets at mistralmusic.org.
Classical Radio Boston is WCRB-FM 99.5 HD1 Lowell, Boston, WGBH-FM HD2 Boston, WCAI-FM HD2 Woods Hole,